Hi, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hi, everyone. This is Christina with Black Tea News, and this is Let's Tiktalk About It, where we talk about TikTok videos. And for the past week on my show, I've been talking a lot about COVID, and I think it's interesting, people's reactions to it, and especially, and I've talked about this on my website and all my programs about, not that I'm anti-vax, but I do not like mandatory vaccines. I think they're immoral, and I've laid out a pretty strong case for that on my website, which you can go to blacktnews.com to read that article. Please share that around. I have Party of Logic joining me tonight, but really quickly before I bring her in to start reviewing the TikTok videos, I want to encourage you to go to my website, check out different products that we have on the site. I have this goat hoodie. It's so comfortable. You should get it for yourself. I am not the victim you're looking for. Maybe we need to send that to Fauci and Biden and all those guys. And this, you are not that special, which I feel can apply to so many people for so many different reasons. So go ahead and check out the store. And I do not want to delay any further. So I'm going to bring Party of Logic, and you can follow her at TikTok at Party of Logic, but her name is Abby. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Listen, I love all three of those things. I might have to go after this and order that goat. I've never seen it. And I am not that victim you are looking for. That is hilarious.
Well, you know what? I made that after the whole Gina Carano situation with Star Wars. And I don't know how closely you followed that, but I was when they decided to get rid of her because the pronoun people were angry at her. And
oh yeah, I'm not a huge, I like Star Wars, but my sons and my husband are. I have a shirt that my logo's on the back for my company, and we have I have stuff for Star Wars as far as that goes. But I was absolutely, she didn't even say anything controversial as far as
she really didn't. No. And Disney flat out slandered her about the content of the message that they say that they decided to let her go over. But really they decided to let her go earlier than that. Because they tried to indoctrinate her, force her to apologize. They wanted her to be on a panel of 40 LGBT people. And she's like, how about I take 4 of them out to dinner? We have a conversation. And they're like, no, we don't want to do that.
Which is
and
reasonable.
Yeah, totally reasonable. Because they were obviously going to have a struggle session where they're yelling at her, recording it. And they wanted her to say, I am a privileged white woman and I apologize for my cisgender, that's what they wanted from her. But she's like, I can apologize, but I'm going to explain, my feelings accurately. And so they didn't like that. So they basically stopped communication with her. They didn't allow her to, they didn't put her on any more kind of promotional tours. And the next thing she heard from them was when we're letting her go.
Honestly, and I've thought about actually doing merchandise because my sister has this great sweatshirt that says freedom is my second favorite F word. Mm. And so then I started looking online, and some of the stuff that I kept hearing, one of my favorite lines is, I will not stay silent so you can stay comfortable. Mm-hmm. And there's just so many lines that I'm like, I can't find the stuff that I want. So I'm definitely going to do, I'm not the victim you're looking for. I love that.
Well, thank you. But yeah, we live in a crazy world. And then, the most striking thing about her situation, I guess, is similar to yours, because you are a recovered Democrat. And so she's someone who just got into politics. I don't know what her upbringing was, but she was like, I'm an adult. Let me look at the issues. And so she was starting to see that she was leaning right, listen to Ben Shapiro, some other people. But then this big thing happened to her. So I'm like, if there was a chance to pull her to the left, you guys blew it. You blew it big time. You blew it big time.
So the left has done more for the Republican Party than our own Republican Party has, to be honest.
That's true. That's true. Especially right now. I can't believe how many people have duetted. I don't know if you saw the video I did with Joe Biden saying, I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated or something. And so many Black people, I'm like, I don't think they're Republicans. They're just Black people who's like, Biden, this is creepy.
So I'm going to put this out there, and I don't know. I've tried to talk to people, and I said this on Thursday. Go with this with what you want. I think right now is a perfect. Now, listen, I'm not a registered Republican. Yes, I was a registered Democrat, and I still am because I never changed it from when I caucused for Hillary, and I did caucus for Hillary. Yes, that's a whole other topic. But I think right now is the perfect time for the Republican Party to rebrand themselves. I think that my favorite idea my husband came up with, he said that they should do a commercial where they have people coming in and out of the screen saying, I'm a Republican, and it be every walk of life.
Yeah.
It be gays, straight, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, people with purple hair, people with piercings and tattoos, because my FYP is full of conservative people that are all walks of life. And I know somebody did a TikTok of this. I feel like people of color, whatever rainbow you are, whether it's, Hispanic, Asian, Black, all everything, people of color, and then people in the LGBTQ community that come out as conservative got more hate when they came out as conservative than they get for the color of their skin or their sexual preference. And it's true around all people like that. I'm like, you get more hate for that. Like that's.
Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day, and it was a Black woman a little older than me, but she kept talking like nonchalantly about like, how it is, talking about racism and other stuff. Like, how it is to be discriminated. I'm just thinking like, I don't know what she thinks that I think that she's talking about. But the only time I've really, when I was a kid, they'd be like, oh, you think you're better than us, or you trying to act white. I'm like, because I'm not speaking Ebonics, like what? So there's things like that, but that's just people trying to put you in a box,
Mm-hmm.
And I've never faced someone saying like, we don't want you around here, the N-word or something, like nothing along those lines or anything relatively close to it. Did I get some like questions that were maybe a little ignorant from time to time? Sure. But I wouldn't put, that those are considered microaggressions because they're micro, like micro.
Right. You have to figure where it's coming from. Like sometimes it's ignorance. And ignorance makes it sound like they're really stupid. It just means they don't know better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. Mm-hmm. But there's like, I had somebody, I don't know if you saw this video. I was at a funeral and she goes, they're from Alabama, and they go, a lot of people in Alabama aren't vaccinated. And I go, really? And I didn't engage because they were talking to my parents, and I'm like, I'm not gonna have this conversation at a funeral. And she goes, yeah, it's because they're Black. And I was like, does she just say that? And then she goes, because Blacks don't trust the government. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, and a lot of them are uneducated. And I'm like, oh my God, do you even know what you're saying out of your mouth? Like,
yeah.
Ever heard of Tuskegee? Like maybe they have a reason not to trust the government. I was like,
yeah. And but the back to the discrimination thing, what I face the most is, basically from Democrats. Mm-hmm. And Black Democrats is one thing. It just kind of feels like your family giving you a hard time, kind of. But when it was like the white liberals, I'm just like, how dare you? The audacity.
Like, wait. Yeah, it literally, I don't even know how they don't see it, right? Like, I don't even know how they don't see what they're doing, the hypocrisy of what they're saying. Like,
yeah. Well, I don't want to get too far into the weeds before we actually watch a TikTok video. So the first one I want to play is one of yours, actually. And this did really well on TikTok and blew up. So, but this is, I share a similar sentiment. So I want to go ahead and play this.
So my husband is a libertarian. And for those of you who don't know, I'm a recovered Democrat. And Tim and I have very interesting conversations this last 18 months. And he said of all the things that are going on, because he kind of feels like politically our country is like a pendulum where it goes back and forth. Of all the crap that's been happening, the part that scares them the most is the censorship. We have seen censorship at levels we have never seen before. And here's my one point I want to make. If you're so confident in your belief, your story, your news, why do you need to silence the opposition? If your point of view is the truth, you wouldn't be afraid of any other message out there because you'd be so certain and confident in yours. The fact you need to censor only makes my eyes go wider and my ears open even more. It makes me more wary of your message, and it should wake up everybody else.
Yeah, so I totally agree. Back in the day when you guys were canvassing for Hillary and I was working for the Michigan Republican Party to get Trump elected, made your job really, really hard. When I was reading through the emails, the thing that really struck me the most was like the cooperation between the media and her team. Like there was one email, they were like, oh, we want the headline to be this. And I looked it up and like, they could control what the headlines are and all this other stuff. I mean, I've written stuff and submitted to papers. I haven't had control over headlines. So there was just so many things that were, as far as the censorship, that really, really concern me. I'm like, if she wins, that's too much power on one side. And I didn't want her to win for a lot of reasons, but that was one thing that really, really concerned me.
Yeah. So when I did that video, there were some really great comments about censorship. And my favorite one was, when you tear out a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might have to say. And that was the most powerful. There was a lot of them. That was the most powerful one. I just never understood if you're able to. The others, it's almost like, I don't know if you ever were in debate in high school, like it's good to have this. And then you are able to actually prove, if you're right, you're able to prove that you're right, and you're able to prove them wrong. So why wouldn't you want them to speak?
Sunlight is the best disinfectant is the saying, but they, like, you got the White House saying that, you know, they want Facebook to limit information that's out there. And it's like, but they've tried to limit information that was correct, right? Like the whole Wuhan lab thing, or where it could have originated. And they're saying it can't be man-made, but this whole time they knew that it was probably man-made the whole time.
Yeah, I actually, right before I got on here, I got a notification that one of my videos from July 15th was taken down. And I have to go back because I'm like, I don't even know what video that was. And it was about me talking about I call it the scariant instead of the variant. And I basically was talking about a conversation I had with my dad. And I talked about how, well, Dad, just, and we talked, it was basically the conversation my dad and I had because he was afraid of it. And I said, Dad, if you look at the numbers, because I'm a data person, from March of 2020, I was on a cruise ship when this whole thing went down. And so I've always looked at the data, not what the media was saying. I want to look at the numbers. The numbers never equaled the actions. And so I looked at the numbers with this scariant. Yeah, what's happening right now is there's more positive cases, but there has not been an increase in death. So to me, actually, the numbers in a month are going to look great because the death rate is going to be crazy low compared to the positive rate. And to me, like, Washington, D.C. had a 7-day 0 death rate, and then they put a mask mandate in. And I'm like,
while the mayor went to a wedding.
Yeah, and then I think what I was, everybody said we're a red zone. Well, our numbers are up for positive cases, but not any deaths. To me, the death count is the most what you need to look at, and I just don't So anyway, my dad and I were talking, and I said that on that video, and my video got taken down. I'm like, and I'm sure it won't go back up. I had one taken down. This is off topic a little. Last week, it was my kids jumping off this ledge into the lake on our family vacation for minor safety. And I appealed it, and they didn't put it back up. Oh. So censorship, I'm like, okay, but so when my husband got on this, he kicked and screamed to get on TikTok. He was not going to do it, but I was having conversations with him about stuff I saw on TikTok, and he was like, I thought TikTok was all people dancing. Like, this is weird. How are we having these great political world, conversations? So he got on there, and his FYP for the first 2-3 days until he started liking things and following people were all women, scantily clothed, or teenagers dancing. And it was shocking because that was not obviously what my FYP was when I got on here. And the fact that can be on there, but my kids jumping in a lake, or my conversation with my dad, that's going to be taken down. Like, the censorship is absolutely out of control. One thing I want to ask you is, my husband had this conversation before this pandemic, so I think it's interesting now to even have it. Facebook and a lot of other social platforms say that they have to put misinformation down, which, by the way, I love how they say mis or disinformation, because it's basically like Trump saying fake news.
Yeah.
But anyway, they say they have to take it down for safety. Well, are you a platform or are you a news source? Because you're benefiting by saying you're both, but you're not in trouble for being either. So if you're a news source, information. So it's an interesting case study legally, I think.
I don't foresee them doing anything about it. And Trump talked about it, but they obviously didn't move. But let's be honest, Silicon Valley, they have a lot of money in both sides of the aisle, and a lot of these people who lobby, people can talk all they want to raise money from voters, but at the end of the day, there's people who can move a lot of money and block, any sort of progression. What I did think was interesting, that Biden and them were trying to get on Facebook and these platforms for trying to limit misinformation. So they were looking at ways to sort of crack down and sounded very similar to kind of stuff that Trump was talking about before. So it's like, oh, the shoe's on the other foot now. But I think there's we had William Barr lay out some things that they needed to do differently in that regard. But I don't know, because Biden, he's been the same guy. I think he's always been someone who's a very not wise man, a man who will lie a lot, but he's a man who will follow a dollar, like a prostitute, I guess. So so if Silicon Valley, which his VP is obviously tied into a lot of those folks, and some of those folks left to work for her or left her to go work for those organizations. So I don't foresee them really doing anything against them in the long run. So
right.
I guess we'll have to try to keep building different platforms and avenues of entertainment and so on to fight back against all this.
Are you on Telegram?
Mm-mm.
See, I'm not. People keep telling me, like, one of my videos when I was talking about how somebody from our COVID, somebody on our COVID floor who works on our COVID floor said that at the last 2 months, now this was back in June, the only people on the COVID floor were people who were fully vaxxed, and that video got taken down. But I was just speaking what was happening here, right? Obviously, that's not everywhere, but I do know from people talking to people in local hospitals that 60% of the people on their COVID floors are fully vaxxed. But and so to me, who gets to decide what's disinformation or misinformation?
Well, they certainly shouldn't, because they've been wrong, and not only wrong, but they've been purposely deceptive. So we're a bunch of fools to keep allowing people to keep, saying what they want to say, do what they want to do without any sort of repercussions. But if we don't stand up and start kind of making our own sort of things to fight back against them, which I didn't work out too well for Parler because they all like jumped on them, or at least start doing things differently with how we vote, they're going to keep, getting away with what they get away with. Since you mentioned numbers, I want to go ahead and play this video. I don't know if you saw it, but when it was on CNN, but someone cut it up. I talked about this on my show the other day, but it's really hilarious to me.
If you're fully vaccinated, you have an extraordinarily small chance of being hospitalized or dying from COVID. We're talking about more than 99.999% of fully vaccinated Americans surviving thanks to the vaccine.
That's crazy. And what I'm interested in is comparing the fully vaccinated to those who are unvaccinated.
Who? Comparing the fully vaccinated to those who are unvaccinated.
If you are unvaccinated, your chance of dying is 25 times higher.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Hold up. Wait a minute. What?
And that data, those numbers, that's so concrete there.
Like, I'm laughing when I'm like, I can't, to be honest with you, I can't decide if I should, like, I have to laugh at this point because what's the other option, I'm crying.
When she's like that, the numbers, they're so concrete. I'm like, she sounds like an idiot. I don't even know who that CNN anchor is, but that's beyond crazy to me. But they frame it as 25 times sounds a lot more intimidating than 99.9975 or whatever it is, the number, which it sounds basically the same as it's always been of the death rate.
Now, I liked a video because I was going to do a video on it. I just heard, I can't remember, I don't know if it was the head of the CDC. It was somebody that they keep interviewing from the government. She literally said verbatim that now those who are vaccinated are not, they can still transmit. They 100%, and which I always knew, right? And I'm like, okay, so then you can no longer say, this is what was key to me, that you're getting it for other people. You can't say that. You can't use that badge of, oh, I'm doing this to save other people, because you can 100%. It says that she literally said the vaccine does not stop transmission. They cannot prevent it. And I'm like, all right, well, then you're not getting it for anybody else but yourself. So stop telling me I need to get it for everybody else.
But I think that's such a powerful tool that they had for people to feel like they were saviors, and that they were fighting against something while and you don't have to go to war. You don't have to you don't have to cure cancer. All you have to do is wear a mask,
right?
And confront someone else for not wearing a mask, and you're a hero. Which the mask thing never made sense to me as far as like the people's perception, because you can't, because the mask, it doesn't stop you from from catching it. It stops you from spreading it, correct?
Right.
So you're only protecting someone if you have it.
Right.
So you were evil enough to go outside with COVID, but you want to be a hero because you have a mask on.
That mask thing never from the get-go made sense to me, like ever. So on Friday, I guess yesterday, Friday, I protested for our local hospital is mandating the shot for all our hospital staff, even if they work from home, like data entry, or they work in the billing department. If you are employed by Trinity Health, you have to get the vaccine. I hate calling it the vaccine, getting the shot. So I'm standing there and I have a sign. It was inspired by one of my followers. He said that he had seen a sign outside the hospital that said, heroes work here. And he wanted to cross off work and put fired here. So mine said heroes work, crossed off, put fired here. And anyway, there was over 60 of us holding signs. And this lady rolls down her window. This is the only negative feedback I got. People were honking horns in support. She goes, I hope you get COVID. And literally half of us go, we already had it.
Wow.
COVID does not equal death. And people still believe that. They still believe if you're going to get the vid, you die. I honestly, girl, Christina, I don't even know. I got interviewed when we were protesting, and I'm like, I don't even know why I have to be here. I don't even know why we had to have this fight. This is absolutely asinine to me. If 3 years ago, before all of this, before Biden, before anything, if they said all of our hospital staff has to have this experimental shot or they'll be fired, all of Americans would be upset. All of us would be upset. So that I have to fight for this now is ridiculous.
They're doing the same thing at Henry Ford in Michigan. And we had a big protest in Lansing actually yesterday. So maybe it was like a coordinated nationwide thing, but I'm extraordinarily against mandates. And there is like historical reasons with like, well, I just believe in informed consent is extraordinarily important. And the government does not deserve that sort of power to be able to just decide what they're going to inject within your body.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you give them that power?
No, I don't know if you have kids, but I have 3 teenagers. And one of the things long story short, one of the reasons I became a recovered Democrat is I started to do my own homework and my own research. And one of the things that I found out about is I didn't realize that my teenagers I don't need to be informed about my kid's health. Like when my kid goes into the doctor's office, unless my kid gives their doctor permission, I don't have to have their information. And I'm like, they're teenagers, they're under my insurance, they're under 18. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, the reason I bring it up is they now can give shots to your kids at school without your permission. And they also don't have to tell you that they've given your kid the shot.
Oh, wow.
So I asked my husband, because he's a teacher, and he registered the kids. And I said, was there a form online? And he goes, honestly, there were check marks. And he goes, I just check marked everything. I go, well, we need to go back and look, because they could have put in there that we gave him permission to give for public health, under public health, permission to give them a shot without our consent. I said, well, basically you are giving consent because you're marking the X. So I've learned a lot. That my eyes have been opened. And the crazy thing is, listen, it was a lot more peaceful when I was a Democrat. I was a lot more like, oh, everything's fine. Skipping along.
Even through the Trump years, everything was fine?
Honestly, one of the reasons why Christina, I was sobbing when the night that it was official that Trump was the president. My husband said he's never seen me cry like that. We've been together for 25 years. I was like, and a year later, because here's the reason why. It wasn't that I disagreed with his policies. I didn't want people around the world to think I felt like he embodied everything everybody hated about Americans. And I didn't want people to think that that's who we are as Americans. Mm-hmm. But then a year later, I was like, okay, our country didn't implode. My business is doing really well. And so then I started to really watch things and his policies and his speeches. And then I would watch his entire press conference. But then I would hear what the media would say. He said, and I'm like, that's not what he said. And I'm like, okay. And that's what started to unravel for me being a Democrat. I was like, this isn't right. This isn't okay. And I always felt I was a Democrat because it was the party of tolerance and acceptance and open-mindedness. And that literally is the opposite of what they are right now.
Oh, it's literally the opposite of what happens in my comment sections when people don't like what I say. So
it's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. Thank you to guys who are watching. I see you guys in the comments. If you guys have any questions, you guys can feel free to drop them. Let's go on to the next video, because I mean, as we're talking about COVID, which not all these are COVID, but I saw this one today about someone who followed the rules and now they're basically exasperated with everything.
Delta variant is that those who are fully vaccinated, that it is possible for you to infect others with the.
Okay, so during the beginning of this COVID nightmare, I washed my hands like a motherfucker. I kept my mask on. I didn't go out. I was listening. Then with the vaccines, it was get Moderna, don't get Moderna, get Johnson & Johnson. Just kidding, it causes blood clots. Just kidding, it's good again. That was kind of confusing. And then now, after months of thinking that the world was headed towards going back to normal, they're saying, put the masks back on. Even if you're outside, we have to keep the masks on, because even if you got fully vaccinated, you could still get and transfer COVID. It's hard for me to want to keep listening to all this. I just want to see where you guys are at. Are you guys still listening? Are you guys going to continue to get more and more vaccines if they say that we need more? How do you guys feel about all this?
So I think I'm going to reply to this video and say, young man, I'm sorry you've been lied to and they stole your life. your life away. They did. He looks like he's a young, healthy man. Not too bad looking.
I had such an older generation. I'm like, he bought that shirt with holes in it.
I wouldn't date a guy with holes in the shirt like that. We'd have to go find him a nice shirt.
I think the shirt came like that. My daughter has shirts like that. And I'm like, seriously, we're spending our money on this. Anyway, Jess, I agree. He said complete opposite, that the Democratic Party, yes. I saw that video. I never know what you're going to put on the video.
Someone said, glad you saw the light, by the way.
No. I'm glad. I didn't know what videos you're going to show, which I really enjoy. Actually, I think it's kind of fun. But yeah, I saw that video and it was really interesting. It'd be interesting to almost do not obviously we couldn't do it, an election now, and see I don't know how, if we're ever going to trust votes. I know that's what we're talking about tonight, but to see how many people actually would have swung, to the right.
If they had just known a little bit different how things were going to be.
Right.
Well, this was one of my biggest articles as far as views that I did. I wrote and this wasn't too far after Biden was sworn in, about just Democrats expressing regret. And so I'm not surprised, because everyone Shatafornia, getting off on other people's pains. Republicans yes, we told you. So they're all reading the articles. But there was the media, Biden was like, we're going to stop drilling oil. And the media is like, Biden has never said that. And he might have said that, but that's not what he means. Mm-hmm. And then he did it. And so the unions were like, oh my gosh, surprise Pikachu face. No, they told you. He said it. It's on video. Trump went to rallies. It's on screen. He's playing it. His words. And then he starts stopping Keystone, and they're talking about other pipelines that they're going to shut down. And the unions were upset about that. And then there's Naomi Wolf. She's a big feminist writer. She's like, if I knew we were heading back toward lockdowns, I would have never voted for Biden. I'm like, this is the man who said we're going into a dark winter. So what does this mean?
Yeah, I saw a video of him during the campaign trail saying, I don't know if it was during a debate, saying, I will not do a mandated vaccine. We will not mandate vaccines. And I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting that you say that, because he probably, there's a gray area because he's not mandating it he's not, right? Mm-hmm. Different places are, but he's not stopping it. And in his own administration, I think just last week, I think they announced that if anybody is not vaccinated if anyone hasn't taken the COVID shot in his administration, then they will have weekly tests.
Yeah.
I think he got pressured because he was okay with everybody else doing it, but he wasn't doing it himself.
Well, here's the deal, because I know they said that they're going to do the federal stuff. And so I have a relative who works at the post office, and he's like, our union said we're not doing that. And so I didn't want to mention it because I didn't want them to get in trouble. So I looked it up, and lo and behold, there's articles that unions we got to negotiate that. We believe people should get it, but you're not going to make us do it. So I'm just he's not about to push up against all these unions.
Yeah, I like you said in the very beginning, I've said this from the get-go. I personally, our family of 5 don't have the shot, and I have no judgment for those who want to get it because they feel like it's best for their health. It should be a choice. Like and here's the deal. People keep saying it's experimental, it's not FDA approved. That's not why I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting it because I have a 99.9% survival rate. Why the hell would I get a shot that I have? I mean, then I started to go, like, we talked about being more educated. I started to do more research on vaccines because I did a video about it. I was like, Hep B that they give to babies is a sexually transmitted disease. Why are we giving that shot to babies? There's another one, rotavirus. Again, I did not do any of this.
Someone got so mad at me because I said, why would we need the HPV one? Like, I mean, that's from sexually transmitted,
right? Right.
Like, well, you never know. I'm like, what? Like,
right.
I know that I'm not going to get a sexually transmitted disease. Like, what do you mean?
I am in control. I am personally in control of that. Yeah. The rotavirus, get this. I should have, every time they said, oh, your kids are up for their vaccines, I'm like, okay, shoot them up. I didn't even know what it meant, like how many shots they were getting and what they were for. Obviously, the obvious ones like measles. But there was one called rotavirus, and this vaccine, there was only 20 to 60 deaths in America before this virus. 20 to 60 deaths. My kids need a chemical in their body for 20 to 60 deaths. And the vaccine is only 60% effective. So it only lowered it. So it's still around, didn't eradicate it. So I'm like, okay, why? So anyway, I'm hoping when I do videos like that they don't get taken down because I'm literally I show like government. I mean, I got the information from a government site, so I don't know how they could say it's misinformation or it's somebody said I'm manipulating the facts. I'm like, I'm literally reading what is in front of me. I hate when they do that.
No, manipulating the facts is CNN saying you're 25 times more likely to die.
Oh, and I love when people are like, can you cite the source? I go, listen, every time I do cite the source, you diss that source and say, I don't believe it, or that's a conservative. I'm like, listen, do your own homework. I'm just telling you what I found.
Yeah, I find it very odd. And I did a video about this, but and I did like a whole like episode streaming throughout the week about this, but why they're so intent right now on, I mean, people who are older who've had the chance to get it, and so they're focusing on younger people. But why do they need to introduce this into their bodies, especially since there have been deaths associated? And when Johnson & Johnson had like 6 blood clots only 6 cases of blood clots, at least that we know about, and they said, well, let's pause, which I thought I wasn't going to take it, but I still thought that was nuts. I'm like, so for 6 cases, you're going to pump it at the one shot Johnson & Johnson. So that seemed extreme to me. Mm-hmm. But they won't pump the brakes on this for giving it to kids, and it's enlarging the hearts of young men and women. Mm-hmm. There was a boy in Saginaw, which isn't too far from me, who was 13 years old and died in his sleep after his second dose. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like enough people know about that. So it's fine if people ultimately decide that that's what's best for them, if that's what's best for their children. However, you need their consent, but the people need to be informed as well. Mm-hmm. And so Biden and them having pop stars come to the White House, doing cute little TikToks of people dancing, like, get the shot of hope. I'm like, can we please talk about like the risks versus the rewards? Right. Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
2 of my daughter's best friends, literally, I'm not kidding, Christina, literally said, one of them is down in Texas doing school, and the other one's her roommate, said, well, I got the shot. I can't get COVID. And I'm like, I'm sorry. They've never said that. Like, I don't know what makes you think that. And then her roommate got COVID, and she had both. She's fully vaccinated, and she had COVID 2 weeks ago. And I was like, okay, I don't know who told you that you couldn't get COVID when you're fully vaxxed. Like, I don't even understand how, like, that's an obvious one to me, besides all the other misinformation. But I agree with you. I think that they're definitely not. One of my best friends we've been good friends for 30 years, childhood friends. Both her teenagers. This one, I was going to do a video about it, but I felt like this isn't my story. I don't really feel like I should share it. It's her story, but she's a huge Democrat, and we can still get along because that's how I work. Mm-hmm. Both her teenagers got the shot, and it's a clinical trial. She had to sign that she is signing them up for a clinical trial, and some of the kids were getting a placebo. But the problem is when our kids are now in sports and they're in Minnesota, so it's a lot more strict, they have to have their vaccine. Well, then she got to go online to find out if one of her kids, either one of them got the placebo and one of them did get the placebo. So when people say it's not an experimental phase, I'm like, she literally had to sign that they're part of an experiment. And then here's the crazy part. I said to her, because we can have these conversations. I said, so did you ever feel, I said, I'm not guilty, but just weird about signing your kids up for an experiment that you're not even sure what the result's going to be, like that you thought it was safe? And she said, I understand that, but my dad's a physician and they needed people to be test studies to create all these things that we have in the medical world. And I was like, I didn't say anything because I just wanted to have a good conversation, but I'm not willing to have my children.
Yeah.
I'm not giving consent it was one thing for me to give consent from my body, but if they want to be part of an experiment, they can do that when they're 18. Like, I don't understand signing your child up, especially when they have a statistically 0% chance of dying. Yes, teenagers have died, but if you do the math of 18 and under and how many people died, it's 0.00003 or 0.00007. So statistically, that's 0%. Why? Why would you give them the shot?
Yeah, I did an interview with George Alexopoulos. I don't know if you've ever seen like the creepy Joe Biden comic book art. But he did like it was like a horror graphic novel, fairy tale it was not fairy tale, but like I guess a fairy tale type book, but it's for adults and it's horror. But it was about Joe Biden. And basically the story was there's these adults who are willing to sacrifice their kids to this big monster, to Joe Biden to defeat this monster, which they didn't want to speak of. And then the monster was supposed to be, I guess, be Trump or whatever. But Joe Biden's like super creepy and he's like eating the children. And so there's all these other political themes that he has in the book. But the main theme is that parents are in a sane world. The parents are the ones who are supposed to sacrifice themselves for the sake of their children's future. And nowadays it feels like we're doing the opposite. And I don't know if there's a truer case in COVID. Like people went after Glenn Beck when this all started, because as people started locking down, he said, no, we should keep trying to keep the country going, keep businesses open, schools open. Like, this doesn't make any sense. He said, I'm willing to like sacrifice myself for the benefit of my children. And people are like, oh, Glenn Beck wants people to die. I'm like, no, he volunteered as tribute. Let's be fair. But then he ended up, some months ago, he had an interview with Megyn Kelly and talked about how his daughter was depressed and somebody saw something online, I guess, how she was feeling. And an officer came, knocked at his door and said, do you know what's going on with your child right now? And so it's because she was contemplating suicide. So I feel it's sad that I feel he was vindicated in such a way. But we don't know the sort of societal harm that we've done to kids in the past year. Right.
They always say, I did a video, they always say, like, if this saves one life, it saves one life. I'm like, okay, what about those people who have died from the shot? Like you talked about, like, somebody said this in the comments about, they die a day or two, refuse to believe their COVID is from the jab, or they could be connected to the jab. Or if you died, like my mom's best friend died a month after she received her second dose. Now, they did not do an autopsy because she's in her like 70s. But I'm like, how many people have died in their older age that got both shots, but they didn't do an autopsy because they're older? So to me, I personally, and now obviously, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, I personally think there's way more deaths attributed to the vaccine than are being listed. And crazy, and I know you know this because I see it all over in TikTok, there's been more people who've died after getting both doses that they can connect to the vaccine than all of the vaccines combined. So to me, I'm like, then why aren't we stopping this? Like, to me, it's madness.
I know there must be more, because in that story that I told about the 13-year-old boy, they still didn't list COVID as like on this death certificate. They're still investigating, and they said it's a federal level investigation with the CDC now. But I mean, but they know it's enough that it's a pattern, because they're like, oh, it affects mostly males. And there was another story, it was with a young Black woman, and as the EMTs, I think, were coming into the house, they're kind of like, it's probably like a heart thing, because they know.
Exactly. So if you die, if you're stage 4 cancer and you're in hospice, but you test positive for COVID, you die of COVID. But if you die a couple of weeks or a month after you get the double vax, it's not because of the vaccine. Like, to me, there's so many obvious things to me, Christina, that I don't even understand how people's eyes aren't opened.
Yeah, they've always been good at covering up the truth about vaccines. I think that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not someone who like reads all the ingredients and goes like, "Oh my god." I'm not even one of those people. I know a lot of those people, but but I so strongly believe in informed consent, and I'm not someone who goes around and gets a like flu vaccine and all that. My philosophy is kind of more like I'll live with that. What I live with, I'd rather not. And that's just kind of been my position. I just rather not. But now I'm like, you guys are creeping me out. You guys are really creeping me out.
I have to say, the people, I really hate when they say you're an anti-vaxxer, like it's an insult. The people that I know that have not given their kids either any of the vaccines or the majority of the vaccines are highly educated people that have done a crap ton of research and homework, and sometimes, quite often, know more about vaccines than their primary physicians, because their primary physicians aren't doing so much intense information on just vaccines. They're just doing general practice. And so to say like anti-vaxxers are conspiracy theorists or they're like some crazy wackos, the people I know have done so much work to get to where they're at. Mm-hmm. And I just respect, again, people's personal choice. Like, I'm not saying that I would never have given my kids any of these vaccines, but I would have said, no, I don't want rotavirus. I don't want Hep B. I don't want Gardasil. I would have like broken it down and said, no, I don't want that one, but I'll take this one. Now that I have more information.
Yeah. It's crazy that they're pushing it so hard, and I don't know what's the reasoning other than money and evil or something. I don't know.
Well, they certainly, I'm sure you've heard this before. They make more money with us being ill than healthy. They just do, and that's a sad state of affairs, but it's true.
Yeah, part of me I mean, maybe we shouldn't even say this because it's just like, it's a thought. It's not a conspiracy. It's just a worrisome thought. But I'm just like, what if the government wanted us to be sick? Because if they make people sick, then they feel more indebted to, more obligated, or have a better reason to put everyone on Medicare for all.
Well, and somebody said that it's also socialized medicine. They talked about that as well. Yeah, it's hard for me sometimes because I don't want to go down too far of the rabbit hole, because then you get almost like depressed. Then you get like overwhelmed with like just the heaviness of it all. So like, I have friends on here on TikTok that I've met through TikTok that are like, they feel like it's going to be the end of times and they need to stock up on water and food. And I'm certainly not there, but my husband and I this weekend did go get just stuff. You know, we got like canned goods, toilet paper, some stuff, and we put it under our stairs. But listen, I'm old enough to know I also did that in 1999 when we thought it was going to be the end of the world when the clock hit 22. Right. So I just
when the comments probably like, what's Y2K?
Right.
I was born in 2000.
Exactly.
2010.
So I mean, and if I don't use it, great. And I can still use it because it's toilet paper and non-perishable canned.
Hey, you never know when you need that toilet paper because that pandemic was hard to find some.
Listen, I was on that cruise when it happened, and we couldn't get internet. So every time we would dock, on my phone would get going crazy, like, oh my gosh, they're gonna be quarantined. Oh my God, it's da-da-da-da. And then all the toilet paper stuff started happening. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in the Bahamas. I don't know how much toilet paper I have at home. I was gonna have my neighbor to go check to see if I need to go have her buy some toilet paper. And so I got home. I even took the toilet. I'm not even kidding you. I even took the toilet paper from the cruise ship and the hotel and put it in my suitcase because I had no idea if I was going to have toilet paper when I got home.
My mom was gangster with that toilet paper. She always had toilet paper. She always had toilet paper. And stacks of water. Like my mom was balling with that stuff. But let's change the pace a little bit. So this is a non-COVID video, but as a married woman, I think you'll have probably a lot of comment on this.
I'm fully convinced that a lot of y'all men don't like women. Y'all like little girls. Y'all walk around talking about, it's just preference. I just have preferences. Talking about no saggy skin, no cellulite, no stretch marks. Titties need to be all the way up here. Okay, titties tiny and up here. No hair on your body at all. And she needs to be small, cute little voice. Yeah, what you're describing is a prepubescent girl, a child. The problem is y'all don't like women, y'all like children, and it's weird as hell.
Okay, so is that your experience with men?
Not at all. I have to be honest with you, and you might disagree with me. And again, that's what I think that, I think Republicans can have different point of views and get along. I actually have, my husband and I have had this conversation before, especially husbands. He doesn't care if I have, I breastfed 3 kids. He does not care what my chest looks like. He doesn't care if I have rolls. Although I always say the reason why we're never going to divorce is because nobody needs to see this naked. I can't do that anymore. I can't go through dating anymore. But I kind of speak like that. I actually have not had that experience. But I don't know. Has that been your experience?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think, and I wouldn't say.
I think this person's hanging out the wrong type of people then, honestly. Yeah. I think the majority of men, that's not important to them.
What's funny is that I went to her comment section and was reading what other women were saying. And so there's, because the first time I saw it was a guy who stitched it and said,
"Agreed, I agree.
No men. What men do you know feel this way?" Right. And so there's men in the comments going, "This isn't how we are. Like, you guys are just picking a couple different things. Like, we like other things." And so the women are like, "You guys are just gaslighting. We know this is how you are." And we're just like, okay, well, here's some guys who apparently don't care about those things. You could stop trashing them, and I don't get their number or something like that. Right. Like, instead of just going after them, like, but some women, I don't know, they just want to be angry at the men. It seems like.
I'm going to say something quite controversial. Maybe they don't like you because they don't like your
attitude.
Right. Like, maybe it's because what you're putting out there is not something they want to be around. It has nothing to do with where your boobs are or your flabby skin, or it's your personality they don't like. Like, I think a lot of people can't look within themselves about what's going on in their life. Though that's everything, right? People cannot blame themselves for the situation they're in. My kids do that once in a while. And I'm like, this is nobody's fault but your own. You did not, like, little stuff. Like, they got scheduled for a day that they were supposed to have off. And I'm like, did you ask for the day off? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, that's your fault then.
Yeah.
It's nobody's fault but your own.
Well, there's lots of videos that I've seen with women, like, complaining about men or women who are like, I bring this to the table, I bring this to the table, so what are you bringing to the table? And they'll name things like, I have this house, I have my own car, I have they'll like list things. And I'm just like, but you're not saying anything about how nurturing you are, how cooperative you're going to be.
That's all material stuff.
Any sort of maternal sort of instinct that a man who maybe wants to settle down and have a family is going to actually care for. And the only thing that in this particular video I'm thinking about that she listed that a man might be like, ooh, is that she didn't have any kids. Like, so but all those other things, like, that she's achieved on her own, okay, so that's something you can't achieve together as a couple now. So I mean, and she's a young woman, Yeah,
I think it's where she's hanging out and who she's hanging out with, to be honest. There's plenty of men, and again, not just her, but I think of other women like this. It might be, like I said before, what you're putting out there, meaning your personality and what you're saying, because that has not been. And of course, there's been men like that, but like, I think the majority of men, that's
still their preferences are valid. Women have so many preferences. So many preferences.
Oh, no.
Like, I think it's so funny because Scarlett Johansson was talking about, like, the role in Black Widow and like was complaining about some of the ways they portrayed her. And there's been a lot of conversations recently, because people are just trying to ruin comic books, but about how they draw women and stuff. But I'm just like, but women go to the movies and they're like, ooh, how many times is Thor going to take off his shirt? Or, like, why do you think they make so many shots of him taking off his shirt? Or Captain America when he's, like, holding a helicopter and his bicep is, like, bulging in ways that you didn't think was possible. Or, so they think about those shots for women. They don't do that for the dudes,
Right. Yeah. My husband, I make more money than my husband. And I know there's men that feel uncomfortable about that. And I'm like, why? Like, I never understood the man who feels that they need to make more money than the woman, and then they feel less, like that's demasculating. And I'm like, no, my husband rises me up and I rise him up. Like, I don't. Yeah.
Well, your husband's got a cool. He's a history professor, correct? Or is he just a history teacher in, like, high school?
So he teaches at our high school, but he also teaches a college class. So I guess we never call him a professor, but I'm sure he would love that. But he's the head football coach, but he's also a city council person here in our town. He's been that for 10 years, I think now. So
tell him to vote himself a raise.
he hates that. I don't even understand how that even happens. He actually asked for during the last year, he asked for a decrease or not they asked for an increase and he said, no, I think we should just stay where we're at. He's honestly, I've wanted him to run for office. He gets asked every week to run for like a state representative or at least our mayor. And he's like, no. Now, I'd be afraid a little bit for him to run something higher because of me. Like, I feel like I'm the one who would probably hold him back just because of my mouth. And everything I feel is on my face. Like, I'm not very good at being like, the political wife. But I think he's exactly what is needed in our government. Kind of like my son wants to be a police officer and my husband's like, not right now. And I'm like, you know what though? My son is exactly what you need in a police officer. He is super jovial. He's a peacekeeper, and people just love him to be around him because he's just fun to be around, and he really is able to diffuse things. And I'm like, that's what you need, and that's what's happening right now. It's a whole other topic, but I feel bad. But anyway, I think that my husband is exactly what our government needs. So he said what he might be wanting to do in the next couple of years is to help like campaign for somebody and be like their campaign manager or be like their right-hand man. And not necessarily be the one in the light, but be the one in the background. Because I don't like his TikToks. I know you've probably seen him. I think he does God bless him. I love him. He speaks way better in the classroom than he does in his TikToks. And he knows this. I'm like, I don't know. You're not translating what a good teacher you are into your TikToks. And he's like, you make it look so easy. It's not easy. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And he's like, no, it's not. So he's a much better teacher in the classroom than I feel like his TikToks are. Although I think his TikToks are great information.
Yeah, no, I definitely like the information is TikToks, and I'm not like a history major or anything like that, but I do find history fascinating. So of course,
yeah. I wish I would have had him as a teacher because I did not like history until I got older and started learning it myself, and then him talking about it, and I'm like, wow, it's actually really interesting. I wish I had somebody who would have piqued my interest in it. That made it seem really boring.
Well, I liked history fine, I guess, in school, but I started really writing after high school, and so I've written historical books. So I do like done a lot of research and
like historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love historical fiction.
Well, I'm kind of like scared to have your husband read it, but it's not like the most accurate thing.
Well, it's actually some of the movies that are really hard to watch with him are things like The Patriot. Was it Pearl Harbor, Lincoln? Because he's
Pearl Harbor is one thing, but
he's like, he goes, well, first of all, The Patriot, I think it's The Patriot with Mel Gibson. He goes, that never happened. That was like a myth. It never happened. He goes, Pearl Harbor, there weren't two guys that saved that's ridiculous.
Well, Pearl Harbor got a lot of hate when it first came out. And then when the DVD sales came out, that was after 9/11. So then that rejuvenated those sales, but it was panned when it came out.
But he ruins it for me because I'm like, I get it's not historically correct, but I just want to enjoy it. And he's like, yeah, but people think then they know history by watching these movies, and that's actually not what happened. Even Lincoln, he said there's a few problems with Lincoln. So what he does sometimes when we watch movies, he'll like DuckDuckGo or Google stuff. And he's like, that's not what happened. I'm like,
that's what I do myself. But I know when I watch something is not the most like a lot of like Elizabethan dramas or something about like, I guess I've seen a lot of stuff with like England, with the kings and queens stuff. But I'll as I'm watching it, I'll research it and see what's true, what's false, with that,
or what's exaggerated. Or sometimes he watched. There was a film. It was supposed to be a night in. Was it Martin Luther King or was it? There was 4 black men, and it was a night. It was oh my gosh, sting like a fly like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Muhammad Ali. And it was 4 very well-known African Americans that spent a night together, and it was a movie about that. But they had to kind of guess what the conversations were just by what. And he loved that. I'll have to figure out what it was called. But
I think that's a fairly new movie, right?
Yeah, yep. And he said that's fascinating. He can accept that because but he said he thought that was a really interesting movie.
Oh well, since we mentioned it, so this is like the 2 that I've written that are historical fiction. So it takes place in the Civil War, so it's kind of like the Civil War meets X-Men, like so. It's fantasy, so if he's ever interested, he could. Like...
I'm going to, because Civil War is his thing. Have you ever done anything Civil War? It's
probably like, oh my gosh, this is
no. Have you ever heard of John Mosby?
Mm-hmm.
So John Mosby is I don't even know what he is in the Civil War, but I think he was a Confederate. But he thinks there should be a movie on research John Mosby. He's a true soldier, but it's fascinating. It's his favorite character. It's a real person, but he's called like the Midnight Ghost or something. But he thought it'd be a really good movie, but not. He doesn't think Hollywood would buy it because he's a Confederate soldier. But by the end, he actually isn't a Confederate. So that's why I think it would actually be a really interesting movie. But research John Mosby. He might be an inspiration for one of your books, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, speaking of like things that people think are true, but they're not, like, I knew that so in the second book, there's a lot with the draft riots. So it's like the big climax of the story. And so I was doing all this research, and I don't think I had seen the gangs in New York, but I knew there was a scene in there about it. So I went ahead and watched it. And then I started like reading about it. I'm like, this is nothing like what and I had read I love The Greatest Showman. And so and in gangs in New York, Barnum's museum was on fire. And so I'm reading, I'm like, that's not when that fire happened. And so I'm like reading old newspapers of the events that happened, and like I'm watching documentaries and stuff about what was happening on each block, trying to it's interesting. You can't just see, you have to actually research and not just take it as, and I didn't, but I'm just like, I'm glad I researched and
Well, and that's his fear, is that people think that those correlate, that was when it happened. That's why he's like, oh, I don't know about that.
Well, it's still fiction. It's still fiction. So he's kind of yeah, but I love that era though. This has nothing to do with like anything. I just thought it was
okay.
I thought this was funny.
Okay.
So here we go.
All right, what's your big idea? Giving people privacy on public toilets. Amazing. But how are you going to do it? We build 2 walls on each side of the toilet and then a door covering the front of it. Wow, total privacy. Yeah, except that it won't be. What? You see, the 2 walls and the door are only going to be built about 75% of the way down. Are you saying there's going to be space between the floor and the walls surrounding the toilets? You bet your ass. Why not just build it all the way down to the floor? Where's the privacy? Someone could reach their hand under or slide under. I'm so confused. And the stall door is going to have a small crack in it. So when someone's on the toilet and someone walks by, they're going to make eye contact for a split second. You're a madman. This will never be the design. Oh, it will. It will.
So he just does these awkwardly weird videos. But I thought about like when you walk by and there is just like that slit, you just to see if someone is in there.
Did you see the video of the guy that was using the bathroom and a toddler walked underneath the stall and started talking to him, and he's like, hey bud, like, can you not? And the guy's like, I need someone to help me wash my hands. And he's like, where's your mom? But the kid's probably a little, it always bothered me in the women's restroom when like an 8-year-old would come in with their mom, an 8-year-old boy. And I'm like, okay, you're old enough to go by yourself. But this kid definitely could have gone to the women's restroom with his mom. But he's like, I need you to help me. And he's like, yeah, I'm on the toilet. And then, and then the kid, instead of crawling back under, opens the latch and walks out. So then the door's wide open. The guy's like, oh my God, I cannot believe this just happened. If I find it, I'll send it to you, because I think I sent it to my husband, because this goes perfect.
Oh my gosh. One time my youngest sister, she was in the bathroom at like I don't know if it was a restaurant or maybe it was like an amusement park or somewhere, but the door wasn't quite locked all the way or something, or maybe it was a little broken, and someone just opened the door, and so she's to like clean it up or whatever, and so she's looking at them, they're looking at her, and this awkward time passes, and she's just like, I'm sorry, I'm in here. I was like, why are you apologizing?
Oh my God, did you see Jess's comment? Read his comment. It's hilarious. The floor was marble, so he could see the reflection of the person in the stall next to him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So my husband tells a story. I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but I always find it funny. So in a women's restroom, all the stalls usually have doors, all, the 3, but the men's, a lot of the men's growing up, and because I'm in my 40s, his bathrooms at his high school, the men's had no walls. So the toilets were just right next to each other. And when I went to college, the women's restrooms had walls, the men's and the fraternities were just, so you're sitting on the toilet and you're talking to the guy. I can't even no, and they're totally fine with it. Totally fine with it. Like, no.
Wow.
Yeah, and now, not to get to TMI, but when I was in high school, boys and girls would shower after PE, especially after, like, if you had something after school, like football, they would shower afterwards. Now they either don't or they keep their underwear on. They keep like their compression shorts on to shower in the showers, which I find really interesting.
Well, we still had showers and stuff and changing. Maybe people didn't shower too often though, but I remember other girls didn't mind changing and stuff in front of people. I would go in the stall. That's one thing that bothers me about trans people, and they talk about being in the bathroom.
Oh, sorry, Jesse. I said him. It's ma'am. Sorry, Jesse.
When you go, when they're we want to dismantle cisgender privilege, and one of those things is being able to go into whatever locker room where we feel comfortable because we have to feel comfortable. I'm what about women? I'm there's women who are cisgender who feel uncomfortable in the locker room
already. Right? Already feel uncomfortable.
There's no consideration for anyone else.
Right. I was at a spa in Arizona in March, and we had to change into our robes, and I'm like, can I go to the bathroom? I want to go in the stall and change. I just didn't feel comfortable being completely naked around all these literally strangers at a hotel. But did you see that? This is months ago, but I'm sure you saw that video where there was, yeah. I was very upset by that because and I did a video about it because I'm listen, if that person was a true trans woman, they personally would have felt uncomfortable walking around like that because if they would have gone to a bathroom, they wouldn't have felt comfortable walking because they don't feel comfortable in their own skin and having those parts. Two, they would have respected women knowing that women didn't want to see that. They wouldn't have just walked around. So to me, I don't know if that person was actually a trans woman. I think a lot of people on my video, I think there's a small minority that are ruining it for the majority, that there's a lot of trans people that were not okay with how that happened. And now they're actually setting that community back by saying some of the things they're saying and doing some of the things that they're doing.
Yeah. But I mean, according to the city ordinance and stuff, I don't know what you can do because California's just made itself a very weird place to live.
Having the inmates, did you see that where the trans women who actually have male parts are now being jailed with cis women?
Yeah. Did you see the story about the dude who raped his
mom? And now he is in a woman's prison. I am this is the upside down. I don't even know how you thought this was going to be a good. Is he in solitary confinement? Because he raped his mom and now he's with women.
Yeah,
girl, I don't even know. To me, it's obvious. I don't even know how you could even.
Yeah, a lot of these people are predators, and I know people don't want to deny someone else's, I guess, worldview or how they view themselves because they themselves feel a certain way or whatever. But some of these people are predators,
right?
And are we not going to protect women and their spaces? It's weird that there's men who would want to get into women's battered shelters and all, have their dingleberries hanging out at the wee spa. It's weird. It's the library drag story. It's weird. And some of those people have been pedos who've done that, or some people who have supported have been pedos.
Yeah, I did a live last night just for funsies, as my son would say, and my and then a right side lesbian, she asked to be on it, and so I got on it with her, and I were talking about, because she's a little older than me, but the same kind of generation, and we talked about how when I was a teenager in my 20s, it was LGBT, that's all it was, or LG. It wasn't all anyway, that community and the people that were supporting them were fighting for just their rights to have children, to get married, to have rights in the hospital when their spouse is in there or their significant other. It was for rights to be treated equal. And now I think that this new generation, or the small minority, is you're upset because we didn't use the right they, them. Like, I think we were fighting for real things for people to feel like they were equal. And now you're upset because somebody misgendered you. Like, and she was upset. She's like, I'm not okay with, I don't know what their agenda is, but it is ruining it for the masses that you're taking us a step back from where we were.
Yeah. Well, so much about today's progressive movements is really about deconstructing the entire society. Like a lot of the stuff, the critical race theory, like if people say, oh, it's not critical, in critical race theory and introduction, it talks about how it's differs from the civil rights movement and does lay criticism to it. So while civil rights is about moving forward, their view is they have to look at all these things because they believe America is bad from basically its root, that everything is racist and ingrained. And so instead of just being like, we have overcome anything like that, we're like, no, the whole thing's bad.
No, like we did it. Like we look what we accomplished. And I feel it's interesting. Jen Ross said, the trans person in my family would never be nude in front of me or my kids. Exactly. I feel like a true trans person would have respected other women and felt that they wouldn't have felt comfortable. And then again, the ones who need to feel special constantly are giving the whole community a bad name. And by the way, this is just a side note. Somebody just said this to me on a comment. LGBTQ should stand for let's get Biden to quit. And I'm like, no, because then Kamala Harris is the president. So I don't want that.
Oh gosh. I don't even know. She's so awful. I can't believe they well, in my opinion is I think they picked her because she was like bottom tier. Is because, well, one, Biden said so many racist things that people got together, wrote a letter and said you have to pick a black woman. That happened. But also I think they felt like if they both lost, they were two people worth sacrificing for and not ruining their future bench because he's up there in age and she's can't poll anything herself. Right. So I think they felt that they were both two people if they lose to Trump. Because I think they probably felt his re-election was probably inevitable until the pandemic.
Oh, right. You know, that them choosing the DOC choosing or just the Democratic Party choosing Biden to be president actually was one of the things that made me open my eyes, because in Iowa, obviously, you know, that we were kind of like the beginning of the whole political environment where you caucus and choose who the candidate is. And I thought the Democratic Party had, now I'm not saying I would want them now, knowing what I know now, but at the time I was like, oh my gosh, they have great women. They have minorities. They have a gay guy, Pete Buttigieg. And I'm like, there's some great candidates. And then they chose, and they hated the Republican Party because they were white, old, rich dudes. And then they literally chose a white, old, rich dude. And I was like, that isn't, they're supposed to be the party of change.
Yeah.
Like, and I know they did it because they thought it was their best chance to beat Trump. But to me, I felt at the core of who I was, I'm like, no, you should just put the best candidate forward.
I don't know if I can agree with it. I don't think that
you don't think that's why they chose him? And because they could manipulate him. I think they chose him because they felt like they could make him do what they wanted.
Well, I mean, I feel he's part of their system. I mean, look how the stuff that came out about Obama and Biden when they were undermining Trump as he was getting into office. I mean, pretty much you could talk about, you know, usurping the will of the people. Like they basically sabotaged the incoming president so they could reinstall someone from the former administration. Like that's what happened.
Right.
That's what happened. So I think there are better choices that in a normal situation without the pandemic and stuff that would have given Trump a better run for his money. Like when I saw Tulsi Gabbard before she was even talking about being president,
right?
I was like,
I was going to say that yep.
And I never understood because there's some Democrats that didn't want to cling on to her, but everyone on the right is like, dude, like this is someone you guys should be concerned about.
I mean, people on the right would have voted for. Yeah.
I mean, she's a woman. She was, you know, on the younger side. She's got the cool X-Men hair.
Right.
Oh my, talk about aging gracefully. I'm like, what was with that swoop there? She's someone who served, and you know, so
I have a question personally for you. How How, because I've asked, so one of my best friends is a gay couple, Brian and Mike, and Brian is a huge liberal and Mike is a huge conservative. And Mike likes to put stuff on Facebook just to start dumpster fires, he calls them, just to piss people off. And it's very enjoyable. But Brian is Black and he lives in Houston. And him and I have had these conversations before. And I'm like, he doesn't see it. And we don't try to, we can get along and to disagree. He loves my passion, he says, even though we disagree. But my question is, how can, two things. How can people of color, specifically Black people, support BLM? Like, why do you think there's still people after knowing everything they know? I support the principle that Black Lives Matter, but I don't support the organization at all. Why do people still support them? Is it just their way to? I don't know.
I think a lot of there was a leftist who actually wrote, well, a liberal or Democrat. I guess I don't want to call him a leftist, but someone who just wrote an article that's some people are just so reactionary to the right. If the right says that something is bad, they have to defend it, even though
right.
Even though what they say might be legitimate. So I think maybe there's some of that associated with it. I think there's maybe still some people who just frankly don't know. Like you say, they know. No, people don't know. I had a relative who wrote on Facebook some time ago, like, Antifa, I don't understand why people don't like them. They say they're anti-racist, which she probably meant anti-fascist, but I was just like,
right.
God. I'm just like,
right. Well, because if you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people and you're watching CNN, you're not going to know, right?
Yeah. So I think there's still people who don't know. I don't support either. When people say the movement or the organization, to me, the organization has had that phrase for a long time, and you should just let it go. It's theirs. I'm sorry. It is.
Right.
And I also, of course, I believe Black Lives Matter, but that's why all lives matter. I won't say Black Lives Matter unless it is to basically criticize or I'm having a conversation. And every time during like last year and stuff, when I saw people hashtag it, I would say you should not use this, and I give out my list of reasons, the organization, and even if they would try to say, well, I'm just trying to support the group, and I'm like, the movement, and I'm like, no, because the purpose of the movement is still to suggest that Black people are still at such a danger, and there's just no data to support that. It's specifically, you believe they're in such a danger from the police. They're not going out hunting and killing Black people. And for people to have this fear and to have this anti-police sort of, rhetoric and mentality, we call the police all the time, FYI. We certainly do on each other.
I know you get a lot of hate for this opinion, though.
I guess I haven't talked about too much on TikTok, but people certainly probably got sick of me last year writing stuff, but don't
they think it's, to me, again, my husband says I try to reason, that's why I say party of logic. I try to reason with logic where there isn't any. Don't they think it's odd that it was such a firestorm last summer and now we're not really talking about it? Every once in a while you might talk about it, like the young lady who was going to stab another woman and then the police officer shot her. That's pretty much the only last time I've really heard that it was like a big thing. And isn't it not obvious to them that they're basically being used? To me, I feel like Black people are being used as pawns. And it's super obvious to me. And to think that you need this is going to be controversial, to think that you need all these handouts to survive or to be successful in America makes people think that, or to me, it shows me that white people think that they can't survive without us. That without us giving them,
that's the vibe for sure. That's the vibe.
That I'm like, we're literally chaining you. We're putting you in metaphorical chains still by giving you all these things, giving you a fish instead of teaching you how to fish.
Well, because at the end of the day, and this isn't particularly just a Black thing. I think it's just a human nature thing. If they feel like they can get something, they feel like they can excuse other things. So, like I was having a conversation with someone who goes to my church about racism, and it's just like Black people, like they say they can't be racist, but deep down inside they know that's not true. But the truth is a lot of them don't care about it because they know they'll be racist or whatever. Like I had a conversation with somebody about affirmative action and how it negatively affects Asians, and they kind of paused for a little bit and they said, well, I know if it was my child, I would want them to have advantages. And I'm like, because your child's not Asian.
Well, did you see now they don't even put Asians as people of color because it messes up their whole ratios?
Yeah. There's a lot of people who there's a lot of black people talk about POCs and act as if you have to have the institutional power and believe only white people can basically. People don't believe that because a lot of black people believe Asians are racist. A lot of Asians don't like black people. So there's not a blanket thing there. And it's just a story old as time. People will in the story in the Bible when the Israelites were supposed to have judges to rule over that, that was a system God set up, and they're like, well, everyone else has a king, and they're like, if we do a king, the king's gonna take men, he's gonna take land, he's gonna take horses, he's gonna do all these things, you have to pay, and you guys here's a warning, this is something you guys should do, and they're like, no, everyone else is doing it, we want to do it. And it was like, okay, you picked your poison because you don't want, however life you thought it was difficult for whatever way because you were different, you're willing to accept those consequences. So
right. I think somebody made a good point. A lot of the people they haven't actually done their homework to see, gone through the webpage and even read what the background of BLM and what it means. And I'm sure you have. My husband talked about Thomas Sowell over a decade ago. I'm sure you've read into what Thomas, and this was before all of this, and it was, he can speak about it better than I can. You should actually have him do this because you guys could have great conversations. But
he's got to friend me. I can't even talk to him.
Oh, you know what? Okay, we're doing that.
Follow me now.
We're doing that tonight. We'll do that tonight. But I think that it's interesting. I mean, what I enjoy is when people have straight facts, right? Mm-hmm. There were more black men in their head of the family back in the 1960s than there are now. Mm-hmm. The black family was more cohesive and better, socioeconomically back then than they are now. Mm-hmm. And it's just, what happened? Well, we started doing all these programs that you thought were so I did a video about a month and a half ago that said, all you Democrats or libertarians, middle of the road, left, whatever you are, tell me one thing the Democratic Party has done for people of color that has helped them. That's not a handout. That has helped the African American or the black or people of color. And there was not one thing they said, not one thing. And to me, that speaks volumes. Now listen, I know I don't have a lot of followers that are on the left, but you would think eventually somebody would say something.
Yeah, no, they find their way into the comments. So there should have been something, one suggestion. No, the caveat of it not being a handout, that's a good one. That was a good one.
Right. I knew they'd be like, oh, all these, and I'm like, no. I knew they were going to say that.
Another thing of the BLM stuff, for a while, I'm surprised they still had all that stuff about what we believe in. Because they had something along those lines years ago when they first put out their website. Because I looked up into them when they first started popping up, and they had something on their site that was along the lines of, if you are a trans woman, we will uplift you more than a straight black male because they're more discriminated against. I'm like, yeah, I thought this was about police brutality, and y'all out here prioritizing people like this.
Right.
Okay, so there's obviously another agenda there. So when last year popped up and I went in their what they believe site, I'm like, they still have all this kind of stuff. And if you look at, so they talked about dismantling, disrupting the nuclear family, dismantling cisgender privilege. So those things aren't great, but and they do talk about the things that they're for. They're for the gays, they're for the single moms, they're for all this kind of stuff.
Well, but who are it's not conservative gays.
But who are they not for? They don't list anything about uplifting the black father. And people who care about black issues, they know that fatherhood, the nuclear family, those are things that are pivotal. So conservatives are talking about it a lot, but when some mainstream black people start talking about it on ESPN and some other places, that's when eventually they ended up taking that down off their website.
Interesting.
So
yeah, I saw a video, was it today or yesterday, where it was an African-American guy. He was saying that I always want to say black guy because what drives me nuts is not every black person has anyway, it's indigenous to Africa. But anyway, He said, why do some of you Black women date white men? Why don't you stay within the Black community? And I thought, okay, if we're all supposed to be equal and we're not supposed to see color, that you shouldn't even say things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why, because, and I don't know, I'm obviously a white woman. I don't know. I've never been told I should date within my race, ever. My white mom have never said that I should only date within my race. So I don't know if other white families say that. I don't know if Hispanic families say that. I know Asians. I have Asian friends that their family wanted them to date. I have Indian friends that they said they wanted to me, I'm like, well, we have to let that go if we're all equal. If you don't look at skin color like that. And by the way, you look at skin color. Everyone, not by judging somebody. I'm saying I know somebody's.
Yeah, you notice it.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. It doesn't mean that I judge somebody for that, but obviously you notice what color of skin they are. But one thing I wanted to ask you is the word privilege. My husband hates the word privilege because he says, and you can disagree with us, he said everybody has some sort of privilege. He goes, you have a privilege because of you're a woman. He goes, I have a privilege because I'm a 6'5" white man. There are my daughter's best friends are both Black and they both got full ride scholarships to college. She had to pay her own way.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all sometimes have different privilege. He goes, you have rich privilege. That's a huge one that no one talks about. Mm-hmm. He's like, you have privilege of where you were raised. The thing is, somebody sees my husband as a 6'5" white big male and thinks that he's got a lot of privilege. He grew up on the wrong side of the tracks with a single mom raising 4 children. Like
that's quite tall. What's his ethnic background?
He's a mutt. I mean, I'm almost 100% German, and that's the other thing that bothers me. I'm not a German American, even though 98% of me is a German. I'm a Caucasian. Like I hate that. Anyway, he is a mutt. They like to say they're Scottish just because they like that part of their heritage, but that's only a very small part. But he's everything. But he played football in college, and he's a big boy. And my sons are quite large. I did a video with my son because he didn't want new shoes, and you could see his feet in the shoes. And I did a video not even thinking about it, and the comments were like, holy crap, he's enormous. And he was 14 at the time and he was 6'2". Like I don't think about it because I'm constantly around tall people. But yeah, he's a big boy.
But the question is, how do I feel about white privilege?
About privilege. Yeah.
So many people asked me about how I felt about this last year when people were talking about that and the white fragility stuff. And it's funny because for like half of my school career, I went to an urban school, and then I ended up moving out to like a rural school. So all of a sudden became like, I don't know, I don't even know if there was 10 Black kids in my graduating class. And so people were like messaging like, how do you feel about this? And so I would write such long messages. I'm like, you know what? I just got to make this like a public post. So my feeling is that I just straight up just hated it. I hated it for lots of reasons, but I felt one, it was very disingenuous because it's like you're out there confessing your white guilt and your privilege. Like, what do you want? You want a cookie? Like, can I give you my cash app? Are you going to send me $20? Like, if we're up for the same position and we both have the same sort of qualifications, are you going to bow out so I can get the job and you not because you feel that you have privilege and I you should pay it back? So I feel like it's just really disingenuous. Like, where are you going to go with that? And also, people do have all kinds of different privileges. People, if you don't believe there's privileges for being Black, that's just not true. So there's advantages to everything. Mm-hmm. There's advantages for being tall, for being pretty, for there just are. So how do you weigh that? Mm-hmm. And also, I hated it politically how people were using it as a weapon, as a tool. Because, for example, someone was talking about Trump and they're a leftist and they're like, well, he's done all these things and this hurt my people. And so you phrase it that way because you don't want white people who may support Trump to go in there and be like, well, Trump did this and this and that. And so people don't care anyone. They'll rebut that. But that's supposed to be like an intimidating thing from your lived experience, right? Mm-hmm. Another thing they talk about in critical race theory, but so you're not supposed to question the lived experience. So they invoke the race cards. You're supposed to just take it for their word that Trump's done all this negative thing for Black people. And so I jumped over like, well, you better list them I want examples for what you mean. So I mean, people use it as a tool to suppress that voice. The thing that there's too much, not enough time to even go into it, but it was very clear that after the Russia hoax thing, the New York Times editor in chief or whatever got together with his staff, and they're like, well, that's over. Russia hoax. We got to talk about race now. Not too long after that, they came out with the 1619 Project. But they want to talk about America and how race in America, how it affects everything. It seemed pretty clear that they want America to look as racist as possible, make people feel as guilty as possible, and have Trump be the center of all of that guilt and rage. And while you have Joe Biden saying, vote for me to fix the soul of America. And so Trump had to be the face of racism, and we had to slay him. And we could start fixing racism by destroying Trump. That's emotionally and logically how it just seemed like they set everything up to me. So I didn't like politically what they were doing with the white privilege thing. And then I'm a Bible believing Christian. And I did TikTok about this. It's like one of those takes, like, what take Christians aren't ready to hear. And I'm like, if you claim the scriptures that you are the head and not the tail, above only and not beneath, that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, that with God all things are possible, and all these sort of things, why do you believe that racism can defeat you in 2021 if you believe that God is more powerful than all of these things?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
And so many people will confess those things, live by those things, and like speak it, confess it, claim it, but you believe that a white man is holding you down. So I hated it so much. That's why I smiled when you mentioned it. I don't know if you felt like, oh, she doesn't agree. Like, no, I
didn't know. I didn't know.
I despised it. I hated. There was so much just toxic attitudes in 2020 that I felt like I was living in a Twilight Zone, especially with the white privilege thing. Because like I said, I graduated from a very rural school, and I had a lot of great experiences out there. I wouldn't have traded for the world. And all these people kind of confessing their guilt and their privilege and stuff. I'm just like, I don't need your pity. I went out there, I succeeded, I did well. I competed with you guys and I did well out there. I just need an opportunity. I didn't need your pity. Right. And for you people to come out here and be like, oh, we're racist. Like, you were racist the whole time I knew you? The whole time?
Well, and I love when people like Obama or Oprah or LeBron say that African Americans or Black people are oppressed. I'm like, you're saying that? Of all people, how are you oppressed when you became the president of the freaking United States? How are you oppressed when you're
had a bash at Martha's Vineyard, FYI?
I saw that. Oh, he was going to cancel it. No, he didn't. Or he was
going to scale it back.
He was going to scale it back. And I'm like, yeah, there's a big old white tent. Like, because so we can't see what's happening, but there's pictures. And then did you see the AOC? How she did a picture? Didn't have a mask on, but as soon as they took a picture, to me, that's the stuff that drives me nuts. Because it's so. If somebody on the left, whether you're a liberal or a registered Democrat, would just call out the BS and hypocrisy, I would feel a lot better. If there would be like, yeah, this is ridiculous. The AOC is saying kids in cages, but now it's actually 10 times more people in these facilities, and now you're not having an outcry. I would feel a lot better. You want all of us of Americans to get the jab, but you're not giving the jab to the people coming across the Mexican border, and then you're distributing them all over the United States. Like, if people would at least call out the hypocrisy a bit, I'd feel a lot better.
I question how many people who say they've had it, like public figures who really had it. Like, I'm about there on the conspiracy front, because I'm just like,
Right. Yeah. I'm
a little suspicious. Because why wouldn't you care? If you really felt it was such a big deal, why don't you care more about the people coming over the border? Or why would you go to these parties without being masked, like Gavin Newsom and the mayor of DC and Lori Lightfoot? I had to get my hair cut. I'm more important than you. I'm on TV all the time looking like I came out of Beetlejuice, but I gotta get my hair cut.
Oh my God. I call her Mayor Beetlejuice. I don't understand how. That's what makes me that's where it gets. I hate the word conspiracy theory, because I feel like that they use that to make you seem like you're crazy. But that's what makes me, when I think about it, if they truly believed everything they were saying, they wouldn't do these things. There has to be something bigger going on, because if Obama wouldn't have had this party, Beetlejuice wouldn't have had Lollapalooza, the guy in California wouldn't be doing. there has to be something bigger going on, because I don't know how blatantly obvious you can be.
Well, obviously in 2020 they felt like because I mean I did a montage for one video I did with Whitmer, Newsom, and some other people talking about like we can use this opportunity to push some of agenda, and I don't think they meant it to be like as quite as mischievous as it was. But I'm like, okay, well that's obviously the game here. Because what happened? I mean, I think with all the stuff that they did with COVID, I think it's possible that they could have got a lot of different people elected. It didn't need to be Joe Biden. I like I said, I felt like there were other stronger candidates. Like they probably could have had a Cory Booker or somebody from all the stuff that they did, how they made people feel, how they undermined the vaccine. Like Trump, you said it's coming, but it's not out yet.
Right.
Like
right.
He's like, it's coming soon. It's like, that's what you keep saying.
Or I'm not going to take it if it's something that's rushed. I'm not going to take it if Trump tells me to take it. And now they're like, take it. And I'm like, to me, like I said, to me, it's super obvious. And people often say in my comments, it's willful ignorance, it's cognitive dissonance.
Mm.
You know, you literally have to be purposely putting your head in the sand. And by the way, I feel bad. I don't even know how long these usually go for you. And I don't know if you need to show more videos. I feel like we
have talked kind of more in between than normal, but you know what? Usually I always think in my head, I'm like, I'd really like for it to be an hour, but I've done none of these that have been an hour. None of them have been an hour.
They've always been more or less.
They're always more. They're always more.
Okay.
Well, I think I was on with Savvy. She was the first person from TikTok I had on, and we probably did like 2.5 hours. And then after it was over, we talked for like another hour, and I did it with like Man of Justice and like I don't think there's anyone I haven't done anything with an hour. The only things that are like an hour is when I'm by myself, and sometimes I'm not even an hour by myself.
So how many videos do you usually show?
I had like about 10.
Okay, show another one.
Okay. So this one's short. This one's funny.
Hey, Amish people, jealous much?
How are they gonna see this?
Oh my gosh. That was genius. If I had seen that myself, I would have shared that with my sister and my husband. Oh my gosh, that is awesome. There's so many though that I'm not even going to say right now because it's so like there's ones where I watch, I'm like, I can't. This is so wrong that I'm laughing, but that is funny. Like, and somebody said this in a live I saw on Thursday. I feel like we just lost our sense of humor through all of this. Like,
I haven't lost it. I just like
I
know
I haven't either. But that's what I mean. People are like trying to find ways to be offended. Listen, this is funny. It's funny.
This one's a short too.
Did you see the one that they did? They did it from Step Brothers. They're like when they tell you have to wear the masks again, and the brothers are like, and they use a clip from Step Brothers. It is freaking hilarious. Oh, I'm gonna send that one to you. I was dying. It was. I love it when they find something like in a movie or like this, and they can change it and be like, "Oh my gosh, yep." I wish I would not have seen that, but that totally makes sense. I love it.
My sister, my youngest sister, she's actually been on TikTok like longer than way longer than I have when it was still Musically, and so she's a little frustrated because her and another sister that's on TikTok were really trying to convince me to get on it, and I was just like, well, I was concerned about all the security concerns and stuff. And I was just like, I don't know about that. It seems like kind of dumb too at the same time. And then they're like, but there's other Black conservatives on here who are doing really well. Like, I think you'll do really well if you get on here. So then I did it and I just like surpassed them very quickly. So they're happy for me, but the youngest one, she's a little frustrated. So then she made another account where she just does like meme stuff like that. And she got more views on her other account than her original account. And so she's just like, she's like frustrated that she surpassed herself.
So how long have you been on here? What did you get?
End of February.
Oh, of 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, then I must have found you right away because I feel like I've been following you for a long time. Because it's been a little over a year for me, but I went on there just as I was just watching videos, like it was just entertainment for me at first. And actually, the videos I did do were goofy, like stuff like trendy stuff, like pranks or asking families questions. And the thing that made change my not my agenda, but change what I was talking on was I got mad about something, and it was off the cuff in my car, and I just talked about HIPAA because I misunderstood HIPAA, and I admitted that. When I asked about HIPAA, I thought that nobody could ask you you didn't have to tell anybody about your medical information. Then I found out that no, it's that nobody can ask your private physician or who you go see. And I had over 850,000 views, and I stopped the comments, not because I didn't like what they were saying. People don't read the comments, and they kept saying the same thing over and over again. And I was like, okay, I don't want these notifications. So that's why. And then I ended up putting them back on after a while because people got mad, and I'm like, I'm not going to read them. I'm not going to read them. I have over 10,000 comments. I'm not going to read them. If you want to comment, that's fine. But anyway, that's what switched me. I was like, okay, I guess people want to have this conversation. And so I started asking questions and giving out information.
My first videos I started to do, I was doing impressions of Jen Psaki, doing like a press conference where I was asking her questions and stuff. And so I have a pretty good Jen impression. And then I would like clip maybe some stuff of videos that I do on YouTube and put it on the TikTok. And people just kept commenting stuff like, oh, you're seeking white validation, or you're Uncle Tom. So
pick me,
pick me kind of comments, stuff like that. So I would respond to stuff like that, and then my TikToks became a lot more kind of racial about like reacting to stuff like that. I'm like, you always talk about Black people. I'm like, I'm responding to
your racism. You're giving me the script. I'm just reading it. Yeah. Yeah. So do you how many posts do you usually do a day?
I try to do at least like 3, I guess, about a day.
And then do you ever block people?
I feel like you're interviewing me now. This is fine. I've only blocked a few people, and I should probably listen to Savvy's advice and block more. But sometimes my trolls do stuff, and I troll them back. And I have fun doing that. But I guess I feel eventually to a point where you bore me, I'm going to block you. It's kind of how I feel. Like, so if you're just gonna keep doing the same kind of like comments over and over again, like there was someone who was like kept commenting about critical race theory. We were going back and forth, and I did like, and they called me I didn't even understand the slur that they called me, but I responded to them in like 2 videos, and then I'm just like, I'm not doing anymore. And then they kept tagging it. I'm not one of those people that's like, I'm gonna it's over and then keep commenting. I feel like if you announce we're done, then I'm not going to break that. And they kept tagging me and other stuff. And this was a person who's like, you always talk about Black people, you always talk. And I'm like, I don't talk about Black people. I talk about issues. I talk about policies. I talk about behaviors. I don't talk about Black people. I don't, that's not what I do. And I respond to what people give me or something, but I don't go out my way. I don't think anyone's less than anyone else. I don't do that. And so I ended up blocking this person, and then they made a new account with like the same picture, similar name. So they knew it was the same person.
They weren't really hiding it.
So no, because they wanted me to know. So I ended up blocking them again, and then they made a new profile. Same. So they did it like 3-4 times. So I ended up actually messaging TikTok. They didn't get back with me, but I don't know if they eventually stopped or if this worked where I just kind of like try to filter out their name and they didn't pop up again. I don't know if that worked or not. They just quit, but it was weird. Like it was like, this is.
So I struggle with it because, a lot of my stuff is about censorship. So I don't want to but as soon as they're rude, and I don't mean just saying, hey, you're stupid, but as soon as it gets to a level where I'm like, okay, that was really off I'm not going to let you do that. Like, this is my page. I'm not going to let you do that. So I do struggle with it because I feel like it goes against what I say about censorship. But I also am wary of having people on my page that are going to troll me and then report things that shouldn't be reported, that are not violating anything. So I don't want to give them the opportunity. And one thing I don't like, and I think sometimes, so when people tag somebody in the comments without context, it scares me a little bit, but I've done it. Like, I saw something funny and I tagged my daughter because she loves Queen, the band. And so I would tag her. A lot of the times when somebody tags somebody in mine, it's not for good. It's that they're tagging somebody on the left, like one, they keep tagging that Muscles and Nursing or whatever, who I cannot stand watching him. And I blocked him a long time ago because I did not want him to get a hold of my account. I just don't want to give people an opportunity to censor me and get my videos taken down. I don't mind them saying stuff. It's that I'm afraid it's going to go to a level where then I'm going to be blocked.
Well, I think it's important to remember that, I mean, obviously it's social media, people can reply to whatever, but your page is their platform. And so I think it's important that you protect it too. And some people get in people's comments. Like, there's this one pastor I know who he has a pretty big following and stuff. And people come on his comments to write all kinds of crazy stuff sometimes. And he likes to argue. So he doesn't mind, but I'm just like, but some people, I'm just like, why don't you just block them? Because they're using your platform as a platform themselves.
Right.
So and they don't listen. but that's just some advice. You can take it or leave it. If someone said something to me that was probably, because the racism, that just is like water off my back. I don't even have to mention it unless I'm gonna just like do a witty retort or something like that. But and then there's plenty. I don't understand it because there's like, oh, you're just saying this stuff for the white people. Like, no, that's not why I'm saying it. But they're gonna jump on you in the comments. Thanks for volunteering. Like, I don't get that. But and you think they're racist and that they're out here like willing to like pick up a sword and fight for me. So it doesn't make
gosh, I have to tell you this. So my husband saw this video and I thought it was so interesting. So, they always make fun of people for saying, I'm not racist, I have a black friend. And so there's this black guy who did a video and he goes, so when you say that, he goes, so that kind of is true though. Would you be racist and have black friends? He's like, so why can't they use it as an argument that they're not racist? Because racist people, white supremacists, wouldn't have black friends. And I thought the way he said it though was so funny. My husband's like, that was only a black guy could say that, or a black woman. Like, a white person couldn't say that because then they get like demolished. But I thought it was pretty funny.
No, it's a very valid point. But I mean, I guess it would also depend on how you actually truly value that person, because you can have people in your associate circle who you would maybe call a friend, but do you truly respect them? Do you, I mean, so I mean, but that's kind of more info than I think people honestly care about each other. Yeah, so it's
all right. Do you have any other funny videos?
Yeah,
or meaningful or deep ones?
No, I'm gonna play this other funny one. Give me 1 second. Oh, here you go.
Nobody in my house is taking that vaccine. Sir, we have a vaccine denier in North Carolina. We're going to send in the hot and ready. Your Little Caesars is here. What the? Little Caesars delivers? Ain't no way this thing's still hot and ready. Dr. Fauci? It's a good thing you need 2 doses. Little Fauci?
Oh, I did a video on people coming door to door because I don't know where they're doing it at specifically. Like, I would assume, just with an educated guess, they're doing it in more blue states. They're doing it in communities where the majority of people, not majority, there's larger amounts of people that are not being vaccinated, and they're going door to door. And I'm assuming it's the community health department, like the county health department. I don't even know who's doing it, right? But here,
I don't think they probably have. I heard that they were having like third-party groups do it.
Like they're hiring like a third-party group to do it. That does make sense. So I did a video because somebody told me to say, so along with HIPAA, that if somebody comes to your door, you have to ask them, do you have information if I'm vaccinated or not? And if they say like, are you going to everybody or are you just going to those who are non-vaxxed? And if they say just the non-vaxxed, you're supposed to say, now stay with me because people counteracted what I said. Then you're supposed to say, well, then how would you know that? Because that goes against HIPAA, because that's my medical information that I did not give out. So why do you have that information? Now, there's two things that people educated me on, which I appreciate as long as it's respectful. They said, don't say anything when you answer your door, or don't even answer your door, because they're going to use any information you have and write that and document that. So don't say anything. And I'm like, oh, geez, because I was kind of looking forward to them coming to my door because I was going to give them the what for. But the second thing they said is actually in a public health crisis, they can access your vaccines and can know if you're vaccinated, which I didn't know.
Oh,
and
wow.
they gave me links to go to. And I'm like, see, again, I'm getting like more information and more educated. I was like, so now what? What do you do? You know, like the government can know if you're vaccinated or not. It's public information apparently, which I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, and if you go door to door, I mean, I would assume persuasion is their goal anyway when they go door to door, but also to acquire other sort of data. I mean, because they're probably hiring third party groups who have some kind of association with Democrats. Probably they're accumulating that data and they're going to use it probably for election stuff. And some people are be like, well, they would tell them off, whatever they came with the door. Any information that you give someone, because I've had to you've had to canvass, right? You said you canvassed for Hillary.
I caucused.
So I mean, so oh, you said you caucus. So
Caucus. I didn't go door to door.
Okay, so when I go to a door and someone was like, no, I'm not voting for it. Like, okay, that's all I needed to know because I know not to call you on the day. Like, thank you.
Right.
Like,
right. So that was very interesting. I didn't realize that. I know someone said, I'll tell them to get the hell off my property. Yeah. And then the one thing I wanted to bring up. So when I did the protest yesterday, and somebody asked me, I got one lady, I do have to say, when I was walking out of the parking lot, I had one, she was off her rocker. I shouldn't have engaged, but when you start these conversations, I wasn't sure how it was going to go at first. And she said, do you work at the hospital? And I said, oh no. And she goes, then why do you care if they get the shot or not? She said vaccine. And I said, oh, because I'm an American and I fight for other people's freedom of choice. And she's like, they don't have to work there. And I go, she's like, they can decide not to work there or not. I go, no, it's an ultimatum because they either work there, get the shot and work there, or not get the shot, not feed their family. She's like, they can get a different job. And at this point I was like, okay, I'm not, my husband always says, don't reason with crazy. Because I'm like, I'm not going to change your mind. So I was like, all right, we're done with this conversation. But the reason why I went there, and I am again, this could be like a rabbit hole or kind of like the doom and gloom is, okay, first and people will say, well, they've had to get their vaccines before. They've never had to get a vaccine that was not fully FDA approved. Now that's not the reason why I'm not getting it, but they've never in the history have had to get something that's still the experimental phase, and that's not FDA approved. So, but anyway, I'm doing it because first it's going to be our hospital staff. Mm-hmm. And then where does it stop? They're going to ask our firemen, our firefighters, our teachers. It's just going to keep coming down. And then they're going to come door to door, and you are going to be literally, you will almost have to be wrestled down to get it. And I saw a video yesterday where there was a doctor, and this wasn't set up, it was real, a doctor berating a guy saying he needs to get it. And the guy's like, I don't feel comfortable getting it. And he goes, well, I'm starting not to, I'm going to start a policy where I'm not going to have any patients that aren't fully vaxxed. This is in America. And the guy's like, isn't that illegal? He's like, no, I can do whatever I want. I just have to send you a formal letter. And I'm only going to accept patients that are fully vaxxed. So that's another reason why I did it. It wasn't just freedom of choice for the hospital staff. This is a slippery slope. Yeah,
it is, and it really bothers me how little people seem to be caring about their freedoms nowadays. And that was like my family. We never stopped. Our church never shut down last year, so I get into a lot of debates with people about it and stuff. But I'm like, even if you feel people who are going or whatever that they're stupid at the very least, can you at least respect their First Amendment rights?
Exactly. That's exactly. You want to get it and you think everyone should, that's fine, but you should still respect our freedom of choice. To me, it's not a hard concept. And I don't even know why we're having this conversation. I don't mean you and me, but I mean why this has to even be a conversation. I don't understand how we got here.
Because people will twist however they the racism thing. People want their choices. That you said earlier, if it'll save one life, which people have said regarding this, people don't believe that because we still have people who we'll do abortion. We don't have people who saying let's get rid of all alcohol because someone could be a drunk driver, or let's get rid of all cigars and cigarettes and all because someone might get lung cancer. We don't do that. We respect our own individual freedoms, and we make risk assessments. Like, are we going to stop driving cars because you get into an accident? Like, no, we don't do that. You make whatever assessments, and you go out and you live your life.
Right.
And now we are in a position where we have a vaccine, and it's free. People can go get it if they want it. It's been out long enough that if you're an adult and you don't have it, it's probably because you don't want it. And it's not a virus that it's not like it's polio and it's like really hurting kids, you know. If it was something like that, I think we'd have a lot of Americans would have a different mentality. But it's like this, it's barely and not killing anyone. And I'm not trying to make the case that it's not deadly, because actually my dad did get it, and it was really bad at one point, and and that was heck too, because he was in the hospital for maybe it's 2 months. We couldn't see him, and I feel that if people could have seen their family, they'd have done a lot better medically too. I think a lot of the policies we had with the hospitals were extraordinarily cruel, and then they wanted to when he was time to send him home, they wanted to send him to a nursing home. We had to fight tooth and nail. They even like threatened us at one point, kind of like, well, if he doesn't go to the nursing home, it might look like you're refusing care, as if they were kind of threatening, like, hey, you could lose your insurance and have to pay for this out of pocket. So we were just like, give us our dad back. And they're like, right. You don't know how hard it's going to be to take care of him. We're like, there's 7 of us. Like, we'll figure it out. Like, give us our dad back.
Right. I think that now this is extreme. Well, I don't think it's extreme. I'm hoping in 3 years from now that there's going to be like documentaries, and it's going to show how bad we messed up this whole thing. Because 100%, I believe in COVID. I got it. My entire family got it. My husband wasn't as bad as your dad, but he was we had to have like a oxygen monitor on him, because if it got to a certain level, we had to go to the hospital because he has asthma, and it was really bad. Like, he was legit in bed for 7 days. He could not, it was awful. Now, the rest of us, it was fine. My son had a headache and then lost his taste and smell. I mean, that was all he had. But anyway, I'm not saying COVID isn't real. I know it's real. I just think the extreme part, what I'm talking about is, I think all we should have done, I know this, is protect the elderly, 100%, and those who are immune compromised. That's it. And everyone still should have gone to school.
I don't think we should have locked down at all.
No, we should still promoted washing hands. People who wanted to wear a mask, whatever. I don't care if you do or don't. I don't believe in them personally, but if you want to, that's fine. And just done that, I think we would be in a totally different place right now.
Oh, I gotta tell you this. So my sister, she a couple weeks ago, we went out to this park in like Canton, Michigan, to like film she did a music video. And so we were in this public park, and so there was these 2 Black women who walked by, and one of them had like a face shield and the other one had forgot their mask. So she maybe she intended to go there without a mask, and then she felt shamed. I don't know. But as she was walking by, she's like, I don't have a mask, so I'm gonna walk like this, as she walked by us. And so after she like was away from earshot, I just turned to my sister and said, you're not supposed to touch your face. Like, that's the number one thing they told us not to do.
I do it in all my videos. And when I was talking to you, I noticed I touch my face all the time. I've even had people in my comment section go, would you please stop touching your face?
But it's so, like, she thought, like, I'm gonna look like the hero right now. I'm just like,
but I'm touching my face. Yeah.
It was funny. I think that maybe this will be the last one that we play. So this is about the rent moratorium that's just the extension that just happened.
So recently I talked about how 6 million renters faced eviction in the United States. And the reason this happened is because the eviction moratorium expired on July 31st. Now, originally, the Supreme Court ruled and said that Joe Biden could not extend it. But thankfully, the Biden administration thinks they found a legal strategy to do so.
All right, first of all, the Supreme Court did not say that the Biden administration could not pass an eviction moratorium. They said that it would have to go through congressional approval. I'll give you a quick little civics lesson. The Constitution delegates the powers to pass laws in this land to Congress, with limited exception to the executive office. In their ruling, they stated that the CDC has absolutely no authority to pass an order like an eviction moratorium. See, in their moratorium, they cite that 42 U.S.C. 264 as well as 42 Code of Federal Regulations 70.2 is what delegates them that power to do the eviction moratorium. But absolutely neither of those federal laws gives them that kind of authority, and that is what the Supreme Court ruled. As far as their legal strategy, it's not a legal strategy. They issued a new order as opposed to renewing the old one. And since the new order hasn't been challenged in court, they're hoping that enough time passes between it being issued and them being able to do something before the Supreme Court strikes that order down as well. You can call January 6th whatever you want to call it, but at this point in time, you're not any better. You want to say that they were overthrowing our democracy? What do you think you're doing? You're giving legislative and executive authority to entities that do not and should not possess it, to unelected officials in a government health department. Months ago, you were respecting and praising the Supreme Court, and now you're spitting in their face as you overthrow our democratic processes. If it directly contradicts the supreme law of the land, it is not good for the country. Knowingly and continuously passing these kind of edicts after you are told that it goes against the Constitution is an act of tyranny within our own government. But here you are celebrating it with a smile on your face.
A massive crisis was averted.
No, Harry. A massive crisis has been created. One last thing, if anybody who supports these kind of edicts comes to my comment section, don't at me about the past. Let's stick to the present.
I love when people do this, like regular just Joe, like they could say Schmo spitting facts, like legit. He just is a regular blue collar guy speaking facts. I freaking love it. And that young kid, him and Victoria, I can't even watch.
Do you think? Because there was the Oliver Needham or something, Niehaus. He had a big account, and I heard he got back on TikTok, but he ended up leaving because he got in trouble for like grooming younger girls.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so in some of his like messages, people uncovered like he had said something about like someone confronted him about a really outlandish video he did, and he said, well, I'm in the creator fund, I'm trying to pay rent or something, get a certain amount.
Yep.
So I wonder how many people say things not even really like, legit believing them. And I know there's kids out there who like they went to school, their professors put whatever in their head, but I wonder how much of it is they think they're saying whatever because they get views and clicks and they want to be cool. Because a lot of their arguments, they say a lot of things, but it's just so not well thought out.
Right. I mean, obviously, look at he got demolished, and he won't think he did. Right. He won't think he got demolished. Like that guy was straight up like you couldn't have gotten more detailed. I mean, I could never have done what he did without a script. Right. Like I would have had to like really delve in, and maybe he did some research before he spoke. But the whole like let's just talk about the whole landlord thing, because there's the loan forgiveness as well, because I work in real estate, and I have a huge problem with this because what's going to happen is at some point it has to end, right? And a lot of Americans have not saved the money they were supposed to save and all this money that they got from the government from not working and living at home. And so what's going to happen? Like there's going to be a huge, I'm thinking it's going to happen next spring, a huge, I don't know if it's going to be as bad as 2006, but a house crisis, because people are not going to be able to pay their mortgage. And I'm sorry, banks can't keep letting them live there for free, right? Now, somebody did say the landlords could have applied, because I said, how can landlords even do this? Like, how can you think it's okay for landlords to just take it? Like they can't. And they said there's actually government. So this is what's crazy to me. So the government is giving money to these people not working and not paying their rent, but they're also giving money to landlords to pay for these people that are not paying. There's programs, I guess, the land
all coming out of magical thin air.
And that's what I said. I'm like, where do you guys think this money's coming for? I'm not kidding you, Christina. In my comments, someone had said it's not coming from you, it's coming from our taxes. I was like, did you just this is the problem. I'm like, are there unicorns and rainbows in your world? I feel bad more for you and for my kids and my grandkids. How are we are owned by China. Like, how are we going to get out of this? Where do they think this money is coming from? Anyway, I think I'm pissed. I was actually happy it was expiring, and I'm pissed that they did this. I am.
And then it's blatantly, ignoring the Supreme Court. They're like, they think they have a legal strategy. They found like a legal person who agreed with them, who was just full of crap during the Trump years. Like, they don't have a strategy. Like, their strategy is it'll take time to litigate it, and they think that they can pass something or do something in the meantime. And it sounds like perhaps they're thinking about just pouring more money into people. And it's just there's a lots of people who took money that they got from the you know, the checks and whatnot, and it's in their savings, and there's people who have more savings now than pre-pandemic.
Right.
And then there's other people who got a lot of money from unemployment or whatever, and they spend it like there's a mall 10 minutes from like where I live. I had sisters who worked there, like Nike, Converse, like they had like, especially Nike had like Black Friday sales consistently throughout the pandemic.
Right.
Because which on one hand, Nike, they kept like paying their employees like the whole time until they basically opened up their store. So good on them. But they were doing outrageous sales because people, that's where their priorities were.
Right.
Go buy some Jordans or whatever.
Right.
Where they were going, I don't know. But they bought shoes.
Right.
So and then there are also like someone from my church told me about some girls that she knew that were like taking their money to have work done, which I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if they're doing OnlyFans or they just wanted to hit up the club looking cute.
Right.
But people did not, if they don't use their money responsibly, there's not more money that you can pour into it. And like also people who aren't going to work, and people are saying like, oh well, it's a good thing and maybe it'll force employers to pay more, and when they pay enough, people will go back to work. For some people, there's not a number you can pay them to go back to work, because as long as they're getting a consistent amount from unemployment or whatever, they get to stay home, chill, maybe do a little hustling on the side, go fulfill their kind of like side dreams. I don't know. Or just maybe they're just playing Call of Duty all day. Who knows? But
I'm glad you said that, because I have a question for you, but I do want to say this before we go, because there was a question I want to ask you, but I wanted to talk about this before we went. So I totally agree with you. I did a couple videos. I did a video and then a response video about like the lack of people who want to work. We're not short good paying jobs with benefits. We're short people who want to work. My dad used to run a company, and he said there's 3 things that a lot of people do not possess: an alarm clock that they wake up to and they use, and they'll actually get up out of bed, a valid driver's license, and the ability to pass a drug test. He goes, it's amazing how many people don't have these things. So he struggled. He actually had to retire because he couldn't keep his shop open because he couldn't find reliable people to work. Now, now that's my life. I know a crap ton of people in our small town that are having the exact same problem. My son works at a grocery store, and it's constant turnover. Either people aren't applying or they do. And then when they get there, they don't like to work. They don't like to come on time. They just don't show up for work. They don't like the work they're doing. They don't have.
That was a problem pre-pandemic, but it's a big problem.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I've had a problem with it before, but I feel like it's gotten worse. My other son is a lifeguard at a pool, and he's working, both of them are lifeguards. One of my sons has a full-time because he's 17, or he's got 2 jobs because he's 17. The other one's only 15, so there's only so many places he can work. But my daughter, I don't know how far you delved into my videos, but she's 19 and she has 3 different jobs, not because she has to. They're not full-time. One of them's nannying, one of them's a waitress, and one of them is working at a local nonprofit. And she works 76 hours this week, because they can't find she had to do double shifts tomorrow and today and tomorrow for waitressing because they can't find enough people. And so I went to pick up, this is my point, this is what I want you to talk about. I went to pick up pizza last night at our favorite pizza place, and I had a conversation with a gentleman, and I said, is your dining area open? I know it wasn't for a while because a lot of places can't afford, there's not enough workers to keep it's not about COVID and safety. They don't have enough people to work them. And he said, well, it's open Monday through Friday, but it's closed on the weekends. And I'm like, that's weird. You would think a restaurant would be open on the weekends. And he goes, we don't have enough people to work them on the weekends. And this is it scares the crap out of me, Christina, honestly, because I'm thinking it's only getting worse. So I don't know what to do about it, because the left keeps saying $15 an hour. Taco Bell here pays $14 an hour, and they can't get enough people to work. So like, it has nothing to do. And a lot of people in my comment section, when I talked about minimum wage or I talked about working, they were like, people need to pay more. No. The people don't. There are places that need to pay more and treat their employees better, but there's a crap ton of people that just won't work. They won't work.
No, that's definitely there's a Taco Bell like 5 minutes from me that's doing $14 an hour, which I bought a chalupa the other day, was like almost $5. So I'm like,
and then people don't realize, right? Like, what's going to happen when we need to pay more. You know what? Your taco is going to be more. Your whatever it is this business is selling is going to be more. I can't. I do worry that I want you to talk about. I do worry about the work, because even now when I go to like our Dairy Queen is a freaking hot mess because the people that are working there shouldn't be working there, but they don't know how, they can't hire anybody else. I mean, it's a mess in there, and the service is terrible. One of my friends used to own Hardee's around in our area, a couple of franchises, and he said the people that are managing right now, he wouldn't have even hired 20 years ago to be behind the counter because they're not qualified. And now my daughter, who's 19, is being offered manager jobs because there's no one else to do them. And she shouldn't. Now listen, she's wonderful, but she's 19 years old. Like, so I want you to talk, like, I worry. I'm worried about our future for retail and restaurants and just the work industry.
Well, obviously, I think Mark Levin did a really good rant the other day about just the state of how things are. And obviously, you can't mess up a country this bad on accident. You just can't. And
That's a scary comment, though. That is
well, and I don't know how much of it is.
And why would you do that, though? What is the New World Order? Like, that's deep. That's like,
I don't know how much of it is Biden doing it mentally in his own mind on purpose, or other people nudging in particular ways to go, because they'll push things if they feel that it's what they have to do at the opportune time. Like, I don't care what Biden says. There's video footage of him entertaining defund the police. Like, Now This did a video. I have like clips of it. It's still on YouTube. You go to GOP War Room and like Google it and find it. You know, Biden, he said some stuff entertaining the defund the police. He was a part of it, and the squad and other people are still for that, but he was a part of it. Now they walk back because they know it was dumb, and they knew it was always dumb. But sometimes they do things for political reasons and screw the collateral damage, because they just have an elitist attitude, and at the end of the day, they're better than us. That's how they feel, and they can do things that will hurt other people. Because at the end of the day, they'll still wave money in people's face and say, "Here, I'm gonna."
But I actually don't think Biden's doing any of it. There's no way he's got that much. I think it's people behind the curtain.
There's people behind it, but he's definitely not all there. But
I can't imagine he
still has to participate. He's never had a moral compass where he would just stand by something on principle. He's someone who will go where the wind will blow. Even with the crime bill, that was stuff that they did because that's what people was asking for, to be tough on the crime, because the crime was high, and there were a lot of Black people in Black areas that were like, the crime is really high, it needs to be so they knew it was a losing issue. The Republicans were tough on crime, so he had to be tougher on crime, because that's where they saw the wind was blowing. But when you bring up stuff like that today, they're like, oh, it was a mistake. Like, really? Because that was what people said that they needed at the time. So there's just never been like any, and then he lies all the time about the dumbest stuff too. He just has no real
I honestly feel like it's elder abuse at this point. There's no way he is capable. There's just no way.
Or like when he was running for president, and he brought up the Hyde Amendment, and they're like, well, I'm Catholic, and I and his staff are like, well, he's Catholic, and he just feels very strongly about our taxpayer dollars shouldn't fund it. And then when Twitter mob was like, oh my gosh, that's awful, that's terrible, blah blah blah, and then they switched it. And so by the time he had a debate with Bernie Sanders, he's like, well, everyone voted for Hyde because that's how you got bills passed. You had to put Hyde in it. So all of a sudden, this long-standing belief that you had from your Catholic faith, you're saying that didn't apply, and the reason why you supported Hyde was because that's what you just had to do.
Right.
So you're just willing to toss 40 years out the window because some Twitter bots got angry at you old man. Like, so he's never been someone who's willing to just stand firm to the test of time. He will bend if he needs to. So I think I knew we were in a bad state when I saw some of the people he was hiring, some people who came from Bernie Sanders' campaign, like Simone Sanders and other people who, and I mean, more people than that. But I'm like, this is a really bad direction, because he wants to win so bad that he's willing to let these people run things. And he didn't need to. He certainly didn't need to. He could have just had some other people who were in the business that knew about campaigning. He didn't need to go that route with some of these more radical people, but they have a lot of these people have super radical agendas, and a lot of them have Marxist sort of leanings too. There's a book called Color, Communism, and Common Sense. I wonder if your husband's maybe read it, or have you
What's it called? I'm gonna write it down.
Color, Communism, and Common Sense. It's by Manning Johnson.
Okay, by the way, I always am so impressed that you can like read off like titles and names, and I cannot. He could do that too. I don't know if it's like the history part that you guys are so attuned to, but it is not something I retain in my brain.
Oh, I it's probably just because I'm for the reading, I guess, recently, but I do try I've had to go into some technical stuff. It's not like I'm just like ripping off everything from the top of my head. But this is a topic.
Even in this conversation, you said people's names. I'm like, damn, she's good at like she can get it.
But I've been talking about this for particular kind of stuff for a minute.
Right.
So anyway, he's someone who used to be a communist. He's a black guy, and so he ended up defecting and being a informant for the U.S. government. So, but while he was a communist, he said that they would recruit black people, and they'd have legitimate grievances. Because I think this is, I don't want to get the dates wrong, but maybe it was like the 70s or something like that, or maybe earlier. But so at that time, people had legitimate grievances, you know, and so they'd recruit people, but the goal was that you could not. They had to have like handlers, like white handlers, kind of watch them at the same time, because whatever they wanted to do for like the black community could not supersede communism. So at the end of the day, that's what had to be what was important, so promoting communism. So it's not strange to me that you'd have a group like Black Lives Matter that is supposed to be a pro-black organization, but they're all Marxists, and they have something in their what we believe, and they're saying we want to dismantle the nuclear family, which if you read, you know, stuff about communism and stuff, that's part of the institutions that they need to kind of tear down and stuff too. And a lot of these people are very anti-religious. I did a whole entire Bible study kind of tying about these people who come after Christianity, kind of involved in these movements and how they want to make people hate America, and tying it to communism, and then like showing what communism will do.
I don't know how faith, freedom, and family, if you believe those are your faith one, family and freedom, those you're bad. Like, I don't even understand how we've gotten to a place where if you respect that, if that's something that's important to you in your life, now that's you're not woke.
Because they frame that because Christianity is a religion of the oppressor. That's what people use to keep people enslaved, which just shows the ignorance of people's history if you don't realize what fueled a lot of these abolitionists. So that's crazy to me. If did you see that infographic that the African American History Museum did about whiteness, a list of whiteness traits? Mm-hmm. It was like the most racist thing I've ever seen. Actually, I have it on here, pretty because I bring it up.
Oh, there you go.
So different traits of whiteness. You see family structure on there. So I guess nuclear family is a trait of whiteness. The scientific method, objective, rational, linear thinking.
Oh my God, all of this actually should be for everybody, right? The nuclear family. Well, I don't know about the husband, the breadwinner. I mean, we're both, to him and I feel we're very, but I also respect people who have the husband being the white, the breadwinner. Objective, rational, linear thinking, like that's bad.
Yeah, I'm going to go on to the next one. So they have on here religion. So if you believe Christianity is a norm, or anything other than Judeo-Christian tradition is foreign, or if you have no tolerance for deviation from a single God concept, that's any of like the Abrahamic religions that believe in one God.
Okay, that was just dumb. Follow rigid time schedules.
That was kind of funny though, because it's time. But
okay, I know I'm always late. My husband, if I feel like I show up, I'm on time. He's like, that is ridiculous. So I have one question I want to ask you before we go, because I was talking to somebody who was a bit of a, I love her, but she was a kind of doom and gloom. I'm sure you've seen them on TikTok. Do you believe in there's going to be a food shortage, or like, like right now they're talking about how there was a lot of, they said that there was material shortage, especially for housing, but there actually wasn't. It was sitting, people had videos, and I don't know what's true and what's not right anymore. But do you believe in there's going to be something?
I don't know, because our supply chain was real. I guess it just depends how much they want to continue to disrupt it. Because actually, when the pandemic first started, there was an article that came out, and I forget who did it, but I did like share it on my social media and stuff, that said that there was going to be mass starvation in probably not in America, but in other places in the world, because how they were disrupting the food supply chain and stuff.
Right.
And so when I read that, I'm like, why are we locking down? This is obviously immoral, because they said the amount of people who could potentially die from us locking down was going to be more than what they said was going to be with the virus. I mean, at first they were saying that millions of people were going to die, and now it was, did we get to 600? That whatever the number.
Well, is it? I haven't looked, because I don't know how many there is in the United States and then the entire world. Like I haven't done.
So and there's a dying with COVID and then actually from COVID.
Right.
Those numbers are totally different. So I'm like, at that point in time though, I'm like, this is immoral. Like, why are people still for this? But obviously it was a power play. It doesn't make any sense in any sort of way. And it really bothers me, the mental distress we've put on kids. It really bothers me how much time was wasted, like that young man who's like, I did everything you told me to. Like it really bothers me. I try to live my life as normally as possible. Of course we couldn't quite do that, but I try to live my life pretty much as normal as possible. And I feel bad for people who were really just hauled up in their house afraid for more than a year. But the thing that really bothers me is what we've possibly done to our freedoms. Like there was a case about in New York, they sued New York because I think it was a Catholic church, and some Jews got together and they sued, and it was like a group lawsuit because they were saying that in other places you could scale it by percentage, by how many people you'd have in there, and then they still had like, you couldn't have more than like 50 people in a church. But even if your church could seat like 1,000 people, it still had to be like 50 people. So they tried to say, oh, we're not going to do the ordinance anymore. Like, no, you could always just put it back up. So we're going to the Supreme Court. And so that ruling ended up being, I can't remember if it was 6-3 or 5-4. Something like that should have been all 9 of them together on that. And I'm like, this shouldn't have even been close. And this is a clear First Amendment case. Like,
or that they were letting people they weren't letting Catholics, Baptists, Methodists, them worship. They're letting mosques open, and they were letting other religions. And I'm like, why would they be able to and we wouldn't be able to? It was shocking to me. It's because of the woke, again, the hypocrisy of it all has bothered me probably the most.
Yeah. So I don't know what sort of damage that we have totally done to our First Amendment rights and stuff going forward, because now there's all this precedence of what we can do if they say that the public health is in crisis.
Yeah, I don't know if it was you that said this. Maybe somebody said, like, when the government can figure out they can control they could break the rules, they're going to just keep doing it. If we allowed them to break the rules and we're fine with it, then they're just going to keep breaking. They said it way better than I did. I don't know if it was you.
I think I said something like in a video, it was a reply to Savvy. Is that what you're
talking about? I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't quite remember what it was. I'm sorry if I'm failing, but
no, I just feel like, yeah, they didn't waste a crisis, and we've allowed. I don't understand why there isn't more pushback. I said like at 9. I don't know if did I say this on here. I said this to somebody my age. I mean, I remember 9/11. I remember where I was. I saw it happening, and the response to that in the next weeks, months to follow is people were very patriotic. There were flags everywhere, and there was a huge influx of people joining the military to fight for our freedom, to fight back to these people who attacked us.
Yeah.
And if this happened today, I do think that there would be more people. There would be people joining the military, but not near as many. I feel like we've gotten really soft, and I don't mean that. I mean that metaphorically. I mean, I feel like we've just gotten like you said, we're not fighting for our freedom. It's it's a no-brainer to me. I don't know why you wouldn't fight. And now people are afraid to put flags up because people are going to think they're conservative. Like, I feel like we are in the upside down. Like, this doesn't make, to be patriotic is to be conservative. No, I loved the American wrestler that won the gold. Holy crap, I got goosebumps when she was being interviewed. And then you had this white soccer player on her knees at the anthem. And then I was like, I want more people to feel comfortable. I understand why they don't, because they can get canceled. Comfortable speaking out, not as a conservative, as an American.
Yeah.
Be proud to be an American. We have to start using our voice.
Well, if I guess there just kind of has to be a breaking point with how much people are willing to take, and I don't know what that point will be.
But I thought we would have been there by now. I'm telling you,
yeah.
In March of 2020, when I was on that cruise ship and things were starting to close down, I'm like, oh, Americans are not going to allow that. There's no way we as Americans we're going to be like, nope, 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 nope. And 18 months later, I'm like, what is happening? Like, in your comment section or when people message you, do you get a lot of people who say, thank you for speaking out? I don't feel comfortable, whether it's they just don't because of their personality or because of where they work. Thank you for speaking out because I don't feel as alone, or I feel like, I love hearing your message.
Yeah, I definitely get lots of love from people in that regard, but I do get people who are afraid of speaking out, or they'll be like white people like, thank you for saying that because I'd be called a racist if I said that. But you know what, I start pushing back when people say that, because I'm like well, because they're like, well, someone will call me racist if I say that, and I'm like, well, they call me a coon, so
right.
I'm like, we're gonna keep being outnumbered until we decide to speak up. So,
and that's why I decided I like you. I think you've probably been a person who's never been afraid. I mean, I'm sure you're afraid of things, but you're not really afraid to voice who you are and your opinion. And I'm the same exact way. I know there's people who don't feel comfortable, but everyone has to. I mean, you've got to stop waiting for Superman. We are Superman. We are the Americans. I see all these countries like Cuba and France are like, America, help us. Australia, help us. And I'm like, we ain't even doing anything. Yeah. You think we're going to help you? Because I said this to my husband. So I'm almost 100% German. I've been to Dachau. I've been to the concentration camps. I've walked there. And the atrocities that we saw, but here's my point. The Americans and the Russians, my husband gave me a history lesson about this last night, are the ones who went in there basically and stopped. He said more Russians killed Germans and the Nazis than any other nation, which I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And anyway, and so people think of us as the people that are I'm like, we're not even doing it in our own country now.
Well, I mean, it took so much for us to get involved. I mean, and like they knew that like even the Japanese were being dishonest about some of the intel and stuff that they were saying, and that they knew that something was probably going to happen, but they still felt that they could not do something until we were tagged.
Right.
And we were. And then
you like history? So my question to you, I asked somebody this yesterday. When have we ever been as Americans? Mine has been this divided.
I know it's pretty.
The only thing I could think of was Vietnam.
I guess
as a nation, like being on opposing sides.
Well, I guess I wouldn't have thought of Nam, but because I guess I was gonna try to kind of think back all the way back to Civil War, because I know it's pretty bad.
Right. Yeah, most recently probably Vietnam, because of like people were so many people were anti-war.
But it's I mean, I know that they were really, really anti-war about that. But that at least that was just that. There's so many things that we are absolutely divided on like every forefront. Like we can't even watch sports.
Right. So it wasn't like that was just war. That was the only thing we were divided on. Now we're divided on race, mask, vax, politics. Like, yeah.
So I'm from a political standpoint, I guess I wouldn't have a lot to be optimistic about, but thankfully I'm a woman of faith, and I believe that there's still room in that human connection and that spiritual connection we can make with people to make a difference. Like if I was thinking about we're gonna get this politician elected, this politician, like, which those things are important, but if that was all I had to hold on to, I think I'd be a little more sad about the state of the world. And but I'm more optimistic because I still think that people can be reached in other sort of ways. I think I think a couple different things that are wrong, that are so wrong today, is that there's people who don't believe in taking any sort of responsibility, but also I think people genuinely don't know. People talk about self-love, but they don't have self-love. And even like some things about the Black Lives Matter stuff, we are conditioning people to believe they're more valuable dead than alive. Like telling people, like putting it in, like Chelsea Handler saying you might as well resist because there's a 50% chance that you're going to die. Obviously, that's not true. And that was crazy for her to say. But then people get into the
She
altercations.
drives me bonkers.
Yeah, but then people get into altercations with the police. And then if they die, that's terrible that they die, but then they get all this money for their family, and then they sue the city, and the city gives these people all these millions of dollars. So you can't I don't know how consciously that is in people's heads, but you can't tell me that's not in people's heads.
Right.
So we've really done a wild disservice, and we just need to people need to really value themselves. So
that's interesting. I like that.
And
it goes back to like how you said, I don't think that we've done a good, I worried about our youth and what we've done to us as Americans and our freedom. If we don't value our freedom, if we don't value ourselves, we probably don't value our freedom then. It's interesting. I mean, I'm pretty blessed that I live in a state where our governor, we still had school. My kids were every other day for the first part of the year, but then they went to full day. And at the very end of the year, she told them like they don't have to wear masks. Now, I don't know what this year is going to be, but I'm lucky enough where my kids are very social and involved in a lot of things, but there are a lot of kids, they don't even talk about those kids who were home so much and they were an abusive family or didn't have enough food. And what about their lives don't matter? Like, yeah. I just, we talk about, I don't know. I agree with you. I think that yesterday when I did the protest, I felt when the people were honking and there were so many people in support, I felt good. I think there's so much good in this world. I feel like when I don't know if you saw a video I did today, we did this gratitude day here in our town and there were signs everywhere. And I think we've got to start looking at, because like, it's cliche, but united we stand, divided we fall. And we've got to respect one another. And that goes, but that's hard when you say it's my body, can you respect my choice? And they don't. That's a tough battle.
And I don't know how spiritual are, but when in the Bible, when God made man, and he gave him two things that he did. He gave him a purpose to go out there and work and so on. And then he realized that wasn't enough. And then he made Eve.
Mm-hmm.
So we're meant to have a purpose, to work, and we're meant to not be alone. We need human companionship. And so those are two things that have been really attacked in the past year or so.
I think that's, Christina, that was very deep. I'm not saying that facetiously. Like, purpose is such a huge thing that I think that this youth, I think that's why they struggle sometimes, whether it's mentally or they don't understand their identity. And I don't necessarily mean their gender identity, just identity of who they are, because they don't know their purpose and they don't have a direction. And so they find other things to be upset about or things to distract them from what's really important. I think purpose, and I don't know, there's this thing called, oh gosh, we did it here in Mason. We did it here in our town, but it was about healthy. It's about healthy living. Anyway, they went to places around the world that had the highest, I'm not going to be able to say it right, but age of death. Oh gosh, what am I? People live the longest, and they went there and said, what do they have? What's happening there that's making them live the longest? And one of the major things was purpose. Was that they had a circle of people that either their group of friends that they would go meet out for coffee. A lot of the grandparents lived in that same house of their children and their grandchildren. They would take care of the grandchildren. They were actually an active part. I mean, you go to our nursing homes and our grandparents are just sitting there wasting away, and they have no purpose. That is going to be something I'm going to think about a lot from our conversation is purpose. I like that.
Well, and I don't think that's anything new that people searching for their purpose, but like I talked about people earlier, we mentioned how, people like to have the mask to be like, I'm a hero because I'm saving, if people can take a cheap sort of route that way, I think people are ready to jump into, or you see so many kind of activists into the whole I don't know, whether it's Black Lives Matter or people defending critical race theory or just any of this sort of other sort of activism that they have that's really destructive. People know that. I mean, those groups who recruit, just like they did in that book, Color Communists and Common Sense, they know people need a reason to fight.
Mhm.
And if we don't steer people in the right sort of direction, they're going to be picked up by these negative forces.
Well, I think people wrap their purpose around one thing is the problem. They wrap their whole identity around being, trans or around being Black, or I'm more than my color. I'm more than a mom. I'm more than my job. I'm more than a wife. I am many things. You can't wrap your purpose around your identity. Can't be one thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I like it.
Well, yeah, I've had a lot of fun tonight.
I know, I did too. Thanks, girl. I really loved it. Hey, and Michigan, where's Mackinac? Is Mackinac Island in Michigan?
Yeah, it's a
Okay, I couldn't remember what state because I was told people said I should go there, but in the summer.
I live like, you can tell I'm from Michigan, right? Like southeast kind of like area. I live in the southeast.
Okay.
Mackinac, if I drove, well, you could get to drive, to like the tip or whatever,
Right.
and then the island's a little off or whatever.
Yeah. That's one of my bucket list things.
I think it's a 4-hour drive up north, like straight up from 75 from where I am, and then you have to board the ferry. I just went to across the bridge for the first time in 2019 and went to the UP and stuff because my sister was running for chair of the Michigan Republican Party, so we like did a whole tour.
Okay.
That's a story for another day because that was some crazy times. But they're having a conference next month, and I don't know who all's going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if Ron DeSantis showed up because he's probably going to run for president. But I know the chair, Ronna McDaniel, will be there because she's from Michigan. She was my boss when I worked for the Michigan Republican Party. I was working there when she was chair.
We can't talk about this or it'll go a whole other
okay.
No, not about what you're saying, but I do want to. I didn't even know about Ron DeSantis until this whole pandemic. I actually don't want Trump to run for president because I feel like we have a lot more chance to win if somebody like Ron DeSantis runs. Because there's people who are Republican and middle of the road that would vote for they're Republicans, but they can't vote for Trump. They just can't bring themselves to do it. And I think that we would get way more people voting for Ron DeSantis.
Honestly, if they were both on the ballot, I love them to pieces, but I don't see, like, some people are like, he should be his VP. I'm like, why would you waste that man? Like,
right, right.
Barring some kind of like sexual scandal or something like that, which I don't foresee anything like that happening. Which, isn't it crazy that the person he ran against had a huge like sexual scandal, was in a hotel like naked with men and like drugs and stuff. So he could have been the governor of Florida.
Your comment, Erica, I actually agree. I'll feel bad for Florida. He'll still have your back.
Oh my gosh, let us have him.
I know. Come on.
You guys are so selfish.
So my husband's dream ticket is Ron DeSantis as president, Candace Owens as VP, and as the press conference, he doesn't want the oh my God,
Kaylee?
What?
Kaylee Mackin.
No, he actually, well, yes, but he wants, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. I love him. You mentioned him way early in the conversation. He's a great debater and he's a conservative. Oh God. Yeah, I almost think he's autistic because he's just so like,
Is it about Ben Shapiro?
No.
Okay.
Yes. Is it Ben Shapiro? Anyway, he wants him to come in once in a while at the press conferences just to throw the reporters off and be like, all right, let's go. But yeah, just try to scare him a little bit. But yeah, Ben Shapiro.
I would love if Ron DeSantis. I think that's why they're on him so much, because they think he's going to be the guy. But
I agree. I think that's why they're trying to get him. They're trying to put him down. Yeah, I agree.
I told my sister, I said, we need someone who can do Trump better than Trump can do Trump, and I feel like that's Ron DeSantis. Mm-hmm. And if I was Trump, I don't know why you would run again, other than
ego.
Other than ego, like pettiness to come back and just do it. Like, see, I told you I could win.
Right.
I won the first time, so now I've won 3 times. So So, but he's like been home. They're not on him. Like they still talk about him all the time, but it's not like they're not being attacked every day. He's like golfing, and people
Right.
still love him.
Right.
I genuinely believe that he believes that he won, which a lot of people believe that too. So he probably has no like hang up about it. He's like, and then he gets to see like how bad Biden is. So he's just like,
Right.
see, I told you, you all miss me, don't you?
Right.
Like,
Right.
so he gets to at least have that. So I don't, other than the ego of needing to come back and be the president, I don't see why you would do it.
Yeah, I just want him to come out and support Ron. I do. I just want him to come out and support him and just campaign for him, and that's fine. You know, that's enough for me. But yeah, the funny thing is, before we go, I hated politics, hated talking about this stuff until 18 months ago, and my world was turned upside down.
You caucus for Hillary, man.
Yeah, but I only did that because I was like, I want a woman to be president. I was one of those Democrats where I was like, I didn't know what she stood for. You know, I don't know if you ever watch Hamilton, but one of my favorite lines is, if you don't know, if I don't know what you stand for, I don't know what you fall for. And I just wanted a woman to be president. I don't care who it was. That's what kind of Democrat I was. My mom's the exact same way. I asked her the other day, just because she's a huge Democrat. I said, so what do you think of Nancy Pelosi? I just wanted to see what she said. And my mom's like, oh, I love her. And I was like, I go, so what do you like about her? And she goes, oh, she's just such a strong woman. Look where she's at. She got to be Speaker of the House. What a great leader. And it was so hard for me not to say. I was like, oh. I go, I'm trying to think. I go, do you know how she got there? What has she done that makes her great? Like she had no follow-up. Like she couldn't tell me what she's done to be a good leader. You know, nothing.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why I don't like Nancy. But the last thing that really irked me when she was talking about, they were replying to Biden's stance on how the Catholic Church didn't want to give him like communion and stuff. And she said that she's Catholic, and she said, well, poor women need, she went on a rant for a little bit, and she's like, you know, poor women need abortion is essentially what she said. And and I'm like, well, if you consider the eugenics history, that's really not cool.
Oh my God. I read a book. I'm going to text it to you. I read a book it was historical fiction about eugenics. And I actually didn't know anything about it, I'm ashamed to say, until I read that book. And it was fascinating, not in a good way, obviously, but I had no idea that was happened, and that was happening, that it happened. And I'm going to read, it was a historical fiction. I think you'd really like it. It was super interesting.
Well, I knew about the eugenics stuff with like abortion I heard earlier, but there was more stuff that I learned recently about it, because I didn't realize how prominent it was like in Harvard in like the late 1800s or like early 1900s. And I didn't realize that the minimum wage has a history in eugenics.
I didn't know that either.
So yeah, there's a pretty good article. I'll have to send it to you, but yeah, it does have a history in eugenics. I mean, they saw it like, I think Australia, that it priced out, you know, the Chinese, so they were like, let's do that here. I mean, Thomas Sowell talked about the minimum wage, how after they implemented it, then, you know, minority low skill workers couldn't. There's only so much you can pay people.
Right.
God,
I love that, man. All right.
Okay, let's actually wrap it up. Okay,
so thanks, Christina.
Yeah, I had a really great time. So everyone who's watching, please make sure that you go to blacktnews.com, that you support, read articles, share some stuff. I know some of you guys are asking about vaccine stuff. I did write an article about why I believe that vaccine mandates are immoral. So go check that out, share that around. If you would like to support, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate. You can do that on the website. And also, please check out different merchandise that we have. I got this, I voted for Trump and all, and I got, you know, there's a list of great stuff like historic peace deals, no new wars, and it all ends, you know, with this lousy t-shirt. I'm actually wearing the shirt right now, Be Better, Not Better. I'm really fond of that. The Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document shirt. And then of course I'm going to show this one again. You are not that special. Go trigger the leftist in your life. And also you can get, you know, stuff with the Black T logo on it. I do also have this on a mug too, if anyone is interested. And since I did mention it, I do write books. Let me take off my little logo there so you can see it. I have 14 that are out. Actually,
wow.
Yeah, so this is like, most of them are fiction. and I do have a nonfiction book that's a spiritual book if anyone's interested in that. But you guys can check out the books that I wrote. But yeah, so is there any place? Party of Logic is your TikTok handle. Is there anywhere else people can find you?
Not really. I had Instagram, and after watching Social Dilemma, I took it. I still have it, and I have Twitter, but I took it off my phone, so I don't use it at all. So I've thought about getting on Telegram. I'm obviously on Facebook, but it's just a personal page. So I know she does too. I agree. One of the best shirts I saw was, "If you ever are having a bad day, just think there's some poor soul called Mr. Pelosi."
Oh my gosh, maybe I'll have to like do an art of like her as the Crypt Keeper.
Oh yeah.
And what's Lori as Beetlejuice, and maybe there's like another one we could like.
Oh my gosh, like like a trio. I like it.
Okay, thank you guys so much for
Thanks,
joining
everybody.
us today. And you can catch me throughout the week, but we'll be back next week with another Let's TikTok about it with another TikToker. God bless you guys.
Thanks for the invite, Christina.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for joining.